Hello, Keller Williams and guests watching on Connect Live and on Pivot Shift Ahead. It's your friend James Shaw, and we are back and better than ever for day two of our shift workshop. First, I want to thank everyone who watched yesterday. Nearly 7,000 of you watched this live yesterday, which is amazing. And another about 2,000 of you watched a recording yesterday of it. So it's so cool to see the impact that the shift workshop had for you yesterday. And I'm excited that you're back today for day two. It's going to be amazing. I'm just going to tell you right now, we've got quite the treat today. It's the parade of panelists, quite frankly. As we help prepare you to win in any market, we've brought in experts that are going to help us do that. So we'll spend some time together right now, kind of recapping yesterday and setting the stage for today. And then a little bit later on, we're going to do our first panel is a seller strategies panel, how to work with sellers right now in this kind of crazy market. Denny Grimes, Maps and Bold Coach, is going to join us to walk through objections that we might face and what are some of the common ones and how do we overcome those? What kind of conversations do we need so that we can win in this market? Jenny Wallach from Tulsa, Oklahoma will join us to talk about how you turn the listings you get into more listings, because we're always looking for those. And then how do we provide amazing service to those that we're working with? And then Marcy Chambers Smith is going to join us to talk about how she navigated through a listing that had 155 offers. So that's a whole seller strategy piece. When that's over, we're going to talk about buyers, because man, those of you out there working with buyers right now, it's a fascinating time to do that, no doubt. And Charles Holloway has an amazing system that he's using in Virginia, and he's going to walk us through that. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And then it's about bulletproofing. You get your buyer and your seller under contract and they're ready to rock and roll, and then stuff comes up. We're hearing upwards of 20% of contracts are falling out in today's market. And so we're going to talk with Jeremy Ellis from Keller Mortgage about some things you need to be aware of mortgage-wise to help you. And then we've got a group from Tony Baroni's team in the Tampa Bay area, and he also does business in Orlando. Tony, his top buyer agent, Kate Conroy, and Laurie, who runs his TC department, are going to be on to talk about what they're doing right now to keep transactions together and make them hold. If that's not enough for you, totally cool, no worries. Gary Keller will join us at about 2:30 Central Time. So you'll want to be on for that to talk about, what are the action steps we as agents should be taking right now in this market. And then we'll put a big bow on it. We'll have Sajid Patel come on and kind of give us the coaching perspective of what that means. So we're in for a great treat today. Now, yesterday, we kicked things off, I think at an elite level, quite frankly. And I want to do a quick recap of what we talked about yesterday. And if you missed yesterday, no worries. It'll be in Connect in the next couple of days, and it's in Pivot Shift Ahead right now. In fact, if you go on to Pivot Shift Ahead in Facebook and go into the little search box and type Shift Workshop, it'll be like the first or second video that pops up. It's from me. I posted it, and it'll say Shift Workshop Day 1, and it's about 3 hours. And you can go back and rewatch that. It's great to do. You're on your Peloton, or you're doing your workout, or you're driving the kids to school or whatever, and you just want to have that stuff playing in the background. You can totally go back and watch it. And then this video will be available immediately when we're done. Like the second we're done, if you want to go back and watch it, you can. Yesterday, though, we started off talking with Jim Talbot. He's the director of research for Keller Williams Realty International. And he gave us some perspective about the market. He said that the average inventory, the month supply of inventory on average right now in the US is about 1.3 months. That's just unbelievable. In some markets, it's less than that. I'd encourage you to go look up and see what it is in yours, but my guess is it's probably less than 2 months worth of inventory. And so we talked about, well, what happens when inventory starts to creep up? What happens if we go from 1.3 months, right, to 2.6 months? Like you double the amount of inventory on the market. Does that mean a shift is coming? And he said, no, not really, because that's still historically low. It's still a seller's market. Remember, anything below 5 months worth of inventory on the market is a seller's market. 5 to 7 months is a shifting market or transitional one. And 7 months or more is a buyer's market. So when he says, go watch it, you should know, you should pay attention to what's happening to inventory. But as it moves up from 1.3 to 2.6 and so on, it may not be cause for concern about a shift from one market to another unless it happens very quickly. So pay attention to that. The other thing he said is you want to track several different measurements, right? You want to track units in your market, how many actual units and transactions are happening, and you want to track volume. And what he said right now with what's happening to prices is volume is going to outpace units. And I said, hey, why don't you do this? Go look and compare your year over year numbers. And maybe because 2020 was kind of funky, you might want to compare, say, right now to 2019 and go and pull the numbers and compare your production and the change in your production to the change in the market. If the market is up 10% in units and you were also up 10% in units, then quite frankly, you're just getting your bump from the market, right? The water's gone up and so your boat has risen as well. And yet if the market's up 10%, but you're up 15%, well, you're outperforming the market, right? By 5%. But then here's the other one. Let's say the market's up 10% and you're up only 5%. Now, when you go look at it, you look at your numbers and you're like, look, we're up year over year. I'm up 5%, but the market's beating you. You're actually behind. Now, you can only do something about it if you know the numbers. So I encourage you to go back and look and compare. And I made a comment yesterday. I said, I think the number one indicator of the health of your business is the number of units that you sell. And I want to correct that. I do think that's an important piece. The number one indicator of the health of your business is your profitability. I just want to make sure that we cover that. And I don't want anyone to miss that. That's what indicates whether or not you have a great business is if it's profitable. And at a minimum, you should be netting 40% of your gross income as profit. This is all stuff we've covered in Business Planning Clinic. And so I don't want anyone to get confused by that. The number one indicator is, are you profitable? And is it at least 40%? The next thing, though, the health of your business is going to be units. Are you helping the number of families that you intend to help year after year? And is that helping you get to your goal? All right, so that was our conversation with Jim Talbot. Jim did a great job, and he's on he's on Connect Live and Pivot Shift Ahead the last Thursday of every month to give you an overview of the key numbers that you need to know, and then the numbers he teaches you are the ones you want to know for your local market. All right, so then we brought in a seller strategy panel, and we did this because we said, look, in this market, if you want to win, you should make sure that your lead generation strategy matches the needs of the market. So why is it people are selling? And what we found out is there's basically three reasons. The big one was they want to take advantage of equity. Another one was that they wanted more space. And the third one was that they wanted to move closer to friends or to family. Those are the big three. So if that's the case for you in your market, what specific lead generation strategies do you have in place to take advantage of that opportunity? So we talked with Chris in Milwaukee, who's doing the equity analysis. And what she shared with us is that she's taken 14 listings this year. It's March 10th. It's been like 10 weeks. 14 listings this year from an equity analysis. And her process was quite simple. She is following the DTD2 schedule. That's Do the Database 2. It's from Steve Schlueter and Tammy Younks. They teach us it in Never Ending Referrals from MAPS and in Bold also from MAPS. And that is, you have 2 letters by last name that you reach out to every week. And you reach out, and she says, here's what I do. The Friday before it's their week, I text all those people. I text them and I say, hey, I'm working on a home evaluation for you because I was thinking about you. Would you be curious to know what your home is worth right now in today's market? And she says people will text back, and that's who she calls first that next Monday and Tuesday. She pulls a report together like a quick CMA or maybe an RPR report that you can do from NAR. And she'll jump on a Zoom with them and walk through their value. And that has turned into 14 listing opportunities this year. I think she said 3 or 4 of which are already under contract, right? So that's a big deal. You should do that. Scott Schumann from Sue Adler's team came on and walked us through the seller workshop. And here's what he said. They're just reaching out to their database and saying, hey, have you thought about selling? Are you curious about what it takes right now? Do you have questions about the process? Join our workshop. They're doing right now like 1 or 2 a week of those. And he says what we basically do is just what we would do on a listing presentation, but we do it to a large group of people who've raised their hand. And then we talked with Irene from Toronto, who talked about the importance of checking in your database, talking to your people. She's out door knocking in Toronto in January to stay in touch with people. And in 2021, she listed 30 homes at over $1 million a piece by doing that. So great stuff. After that, Jason Abrams came on. He's the head of industry for Keller Williams. And he talked to us about the importance of being unique to your database. And he gave you the model for that, right? How to provide unique information, unique access, and unique service. And that was great. So if you missed it, you want to go back and watch that. Then we talked with our enablement team from KWU, and they walked through how Command can be your partner in knowing your numbers and staying out in front of things. So that's a recap from yesterday. Here's where I want to go today. George, we can start sharing the screen. And I want to lay some stuff out to you about the importance of doing the right things. You know, every day you wake up and you have a choice. Are you going to actively go pursue opportunity or passively pursue it? And I'm curious, put in the chat, which one do you think we should do right now? Should we do active, which would be prospecting, right? Should we actively look for people to do business with? That's prospecting. Or should we passively look for people to do business with, which is marketing? Put which one do you think we should do? What should we do? Should we do prospecting or marketing in today's market? Put that in the chat. I'll be curious to see what pops up. But as you're typing your answer, can I just give you a hint? It's both. Yeah, Gary says we do both, right? We're prospecting based and we're marketing enhanced. And the reason that we're prospecting based, and if you listen to what Chris is doing with her equity analysis, the reason that we're prospecting based is because that brings us immediate opportunity. So Chris is actively texting her people by last name and then calling them the next week to say, hey, do you want to know the value of your home? That's immediate. It's proactive, but it takes her a lot of time, right? She's got to physically call each person. The ones who want to report, she has to physically go run that report and get it done and get it cranked out. And yet she's being active in doing that. But you know what else she's doing? She told us that in addition to texting everybody and calling them to see what they want, she says, I send them a letter too. And she gave us an example that at the beginning of the baseball season last year, let's keep our fingers crossed we have one this year, but at the beginning of last year's baseball season, she sent out a letter. She called it an equity analysis letter, which, by the way, you can find in the Pivot Shift Ahead Facebook group. If you just go to files, type equity analysis, you'll find all sorts of stuff on it. She sent out a letter that talked about it with the baseball schedule magnet of the Milwaukee Brewers. Well, see, that's prospecting, or I'm sorry, that's marketing, and marketing is money intensive, right? She's got to buy all the magnets, she's got to print all the letters, she's got to buy envelopes, she's got to put stamps on them. There's labor time associated with that, and it's very passive, right? It's counting on for people to reach out to her, but yet it can create some long-term results. So you have to decide, you know, which is it that you're going to do. Now, a lot of people look at this prospecting and various things, and they think it's bad. Like, I don't want to do that. But let's go into the book. And when I say the book, I'm in the Shift book. And if you don't have a copy, no worries. Totally cool. You don't need one. I'm going to read stuff to you. It's okay. But in the Shift book, Gary says this. He says, I thought lead generation was really difficult. Now, I just want to pause for a second, because that's Gary Keller telling you that he thought lead generation was really difficult. That sentence right there, that's half a sentence actually, because there's a comma, there's more to come, gives me peace of mind to know that quite possibly the greatest mind to ever exist in the history of real estate is telling you that he thought lead generation was really difficult. Does that make you feel better? Put a yes or no in the chat if that makes you feel better. Here's what he goes on to say. But after I diligently applied myself to it for a reasonable length of time, I came to see that it was actually quite easy and could even be fun. I was confusing effort with enjoyment. Now let's talk about that for a minute, because we do that all the time. We confuse effort with enjoyment. You know, it's exciting because today is Naomi's 10th birthday. That's my daughter, Naomi. And if you had the over under on how many minutes it was going to take for me to bring that up at 14 minutes, if you were under 14 minutes, you lost. But the Naomi's 14th or 10th birthday is today. And I remember, you know, she helps, she does stuff at the house, right? She's got responsibilities. And one day we were unloading the dishwasher, and she says to me, Daddy, this is really hard. I don't want to do this. This is hard. And I said, it is? Yes, it's hard. I go, well, tell me about that, because it seems pretty easy. I go, I don't know. What do you open the dishwasher and you pull the thing out, and then like there's a plate, and you grab the plate, and then you go put it in the cabinet, and then you come back and there, oh, there's another plate, or maybe there's some spoons, and you take your spoons and you go put them in the drawer. And I don't know, it doesn't seem hard to me, but it's not fun. And this is what happens to us every single day. Lead generation is not hard. It just isn't fun. Go back to the screen, George. If you're not showing the slide, let's show this slide because there's a whole list of things here that we could do for prospecting. And this is in MREA, and it's also in Shift. There's a whole list of things that we could do for prospecting or marketing. You can pick; it doesn't really matter to me. We heard multiple examples yesterday of strategies that you can use to go and find clients, and you just kind of pick whichever one is best for you. But none of these things are hard. Like you're all actually, people say all the time, well, I can't possibly call someone. I wouldn't know what to say. I go, you call people all the time. If something isn't happening, if you've bought something from a store and it didn't arrive and you expected it to arrive, you're like really good at calling and asking, where is it? And you didn't have to sit down and like practice what that conversation was going to look like. You just picked up the phone and called and say, hey, where's my sofa? You're actually really, really good at calling people. But what you've done is you've confused effort with enjoyment. Here's what Gary goes on to say on page 52. I also thought I was going to be too busy and I wouldn't have time to lead generate. Who's ever said that? Put me in the chat if that's you. If you've ever said, I'm too busy to lead generate, put me in the chat. Now, again, I go back. In one paragraph, we've had Gary Keller say to us, number one, I thought lead generation was difficult, which many of us have said. Number two, he said, I thought I wouldn't have time to lead generate, which many of us have said. This is Gary Keller talking to you. The fears that you've had about your business are the same ones he had about his. There's an aha there for you. What he says, though, is as I focused on doing it every day, I discovered it wasn't an issue of having time, but an issue of making time and then protecting it. As I learned to manage my time better, I discovered I had all the time I needed. It's about, putting your priorities on your schedule instead of letting your schedule determine your priorities. When you put the right things on the schedule and then just show up for those things and kind of just do the next right thing every morning, then you'll be in great shape. And that's how you stay protected in a shift. Because if you remember yesterday, we read a piece to you from the book that says that not getting lead generation done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market, but it will put you out of business in a cold one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're in a hot market right now. There's no doubt about it. When you go look and you find out that there's 1.3 months worth of inventory sitting on the market, that's a hot market. I was looking, there's a house in our neighborhood that went on the market yesterday. You know what's fascinating about this house? Someone bought it in December. Listen to me. They bought it in December and they put it on the market on March 9th. And they've listed it for $50,000 more than they paid for it in December. And guess what? They're going to get that much for it. I promise you they will. And it'll be sold by the weekend. Why? Because in my town, in my zip code, in 34695, there are 3 homes for sale. In the entire zip code, 3 homes for sale. There's 2 of them. 2 of them are in this price point. So you're going to have these people looking at this price point, and they've got 2 choices. Am I going to buy this one or am I going to buy this one? And it's going to be gone just like that. Now, that agent doesn't really have to work that hard. Who knows? They could have been sitting at a coffee shop and somebody said, yeah, we might sell the house. And he goes, oh, sell the house. I'll put my sign in the yard. And then they're going to get paid in 45 days. You can do that and win in a market like this. But you can't do it in a down market and still win, right? Not getting lead generation done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market, but it will put you out of business in a cold one. So Gary, back in the book on page 52, says you got to put the time in and protect it. Now, this is Gary's next issue he ran into. Listen to this. Again, I'm still on page 52 of Shift. So far we've covered that Gary said he thought lead generation was going to be difficult. All right, that was number 1. Number 2, he said that actually he was worried he wasn't going to have time for it. That was his second concern. The third concern was this. I believed I couldn't lead generate because I didn't know what to do or say, and I was afraid of making mistakes. Is that anybody else on this call? Put yes or no in the chat. Is that you? Have you ever been afraid of not knowing what to say or making a mistake? Because Gary Keller was. He told you right here on page 52 of Shift. He said, I was afraid I was going to make mistakes or not say the right thing. But then here's what he said. However, as I consistently got after it, I found that lead generation is nothing more than a set of tasks and skills that are well documented. Well, what we attempted to do yesterday was document some tasks and skills that you could implement that would bring you listings in business right now. Just it becomes up to you to implement those things. Here's what he said. I caught on that with practice and homework, these actions are easily understood and learned. So then here's my question for you. Are you practicing? Are you practicing with agents in your office or jumping on one of the many Zoom calls that are happening all over the country? And if you're looking for a script practice call, just go in the Pivot Shift Ahead Facebook group and write script practice call, and something's going to pop up. And then you can learn how to have the right conversations with people. But you have a choice to do that, right? You can practice with peers and other people in your industry who are experiencing the same thing you're doing. That's option A. Option B is you can practice on potential clients. But either way, you are practicing. The question is, who's your practice partner? Is your practice partner another agent, a peer, somebody in your office? Or is your practice partner someone who could end up paying you, I don't know, $5, $6, $7, $10, $15, $20, $30,000? Every time you practice on a potential client and don't get it, all you did was pay $5, $6, $7, $10, $15, $20, $30,000 for training. Instead, go practice with people in your office. Put together a group of people in your office and practice with them. In fact, if you are practicing on a regular basis, do me a favor, type in the chat how it's helped you. Type in the chat how it's helped you. You know, I talk to millionaire real estate agents every day, and they all practice. Jessica Starr is one of the top 5 agents in the entire state of Connecticut for any brand, is always practicing. Jenny Wallach, who's going to be on today, is always practicing. Are you? Now, those of you, by the way, I know we've covered a lot. I just want to remind you, I'm in Shift, and I've been on one page. It's page 52, and you don't need a copy of it because I'm straight reading it to you. Okay, so don't worry about it. And if you want a copy, I don't know, you can get it on Amazon, probably Keller Inc. I don't know, but just roll with me. Don't worry about it. Here's what he says. It's easy to understand and learn. Okay, I saw that on top of being a transaction knowledge and service business, our industry is a dialogue skill-based business. What happens is that some of you are the most amazing real estate agent to ever walk the planet. You know the contract backwards, forwards, sideways, inside out. You are the best contract filler-outer in the history of the industry, but nobody knows. Nobody knows because you don't do the other side of the business, which is the dialogue skill-based part, where you're in relationship and in a flow and talking to people so you have contracts to fill out. Here's what Gary said. I discovered that time on task over time was the simple secret that helped me become very good. I want you to be very good. That's the bottom line. I want you to be very, very good at what you do. So in order to do that, we need to know what works. Like, we've got to figure out what lead generation strategies are your best lead generation strategies. So I want you to take a pen and paper out. And actually, you know what, Jenny, I am going to invite you into the conversation. Can we invite my friend Jenny Wallach into the conversation? Because I know she can help me with this. This is what happens, Jenny, when you sign on early.
Oh, so, no.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. And you're going to do great. I'm so excited. So everybody, welcome Jenny. And we'll have our other guests join for the other panel in a minute. But Jenny, you and I have talked together so many times. And so I know you can handle this. We always say, look, let's figure out where our business is coming from and do more of that. And if I went to the Wallet Group in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you guys did how many transactions last year?
191.
Okay, 191 transactions. And I said, Jenny, where's most of that coming from? You know the answer, yes?
Yes, 50%.
Okay, so where's most of that? Tell me your, say, top 3 or 4, however many you know off the top of your head, because we did not plan this. So Jenny's just rolling with me. What are your top 3 or 4 sources of business?
So 50% it would be our local database. That would be past clients and referrals from our sphere, repeat and referral business, all database local.
All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
30% come from agent to agent referrals. So thank you guys. With having a database of, to market to my agents across the country. And then from there, we go into some just different lead sources. And what's been really exciting is over the past couple of years, our numbers that have gone up from things like people finding us online. That's from having great Google reviews available, and sign calls and web leads that comes from having listings in this low in active inventory market. So there you go.
Okay, so it's your local sphere and database, then it's the agent database, and then I'm sorry, the third one was what? I forgot already.
Just a combination of web leads and sign calls that relate
so
to
a result of the other
content.
business you're getting. The result of you having listings is what's bringing the other opportunities. People call on signs, they see it online, and so on and so forth. Okay, so here's what's important about that is now you know where to put your lead generation efforts, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about your database for a minute. You are very tactical when it comes to your database, right? Where you've broken it down and you're going to communicate with people in a certain way.
That's true. I feel like we've talked about this before, James, and thank you for allowing me to share. So yeah, I mean, I've been in the business.
I might get in trouble later. I'm just going to tell everybody. I'm probably going to get a text going, don't do this to me, but you've got too much great stuff to share.
Well, I've been in the business for 21 years, James, and I've learned a lot. And I've also learned that my life is so much better once I figured out who I was. And then I have attracted team members who are all in on that mission and that the culture of caring about people and giving back to our community. And so those are the people that we attract into our world that we get to help and work with. And so our database gets segmented into, following the red book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. I read and reread pages 133 through 149 over and over again. That's the lead generation model. And that's how I built my business. So nothing that we do at the Wallet Group in Tulsa, Oklahoma is anything different than what Gary tells us to do. And that's how we have it all set up.
I love it. All right, Jenny, we're good. I'm going to see you in a few minutes as we do the panel. Thank you for hopping on and filling in that gap. No, you're great. I can't wait to have you back here in a little bit. Thank you so much. And here's what Jenny taught you, right? She just said, you got to know where the business is coming from and segment it. So with that said, I want to talk about, because what we're really looking at is urgency around lead generation right now. So if you're taking notes, write down shift page 54 and 55, because you have homework. And I want you to do this homework assignment. And here's what Gary Keller teaches us on shift page 54 and 55. And he says, well, stop doing what doesn't work. I didn't hear Jenny say she's, for example, calling for sale by owners. Now, many of you may be doing that, and it might be working for you. But if it's not working, you stop doing it. And here's what he says on page 54. You start by realizing that time and money are really the two basic tools you have to generate leads. So you must absolutely stop spending any money or any time on lead generation activities that aren't working. So if it's not working, you have to stop doing it. At the end of the day, you do. He says here, your goal hasn't changed. You know what your annual income goal is. You know the number of sales you need. And so now you have to go out and get the appointments to match the sales. Here's the question you have to answer, quote, what am I doing or spending money on that's no longer effective? And he said the only way you can do that is by going and associating your lead generation with your actual closed sales. Now, Jenny gave you numbers. She said, I get 40% of the business from the database, 30% from agent to agent referral, and then whatever else, she'd walk through the other things. So here's my homework challenge for you is what I'd like for you to do is go make a list. Go make a list of your top 10 lead generation sources. Go look at every closing you had from 2021. Every single one. Some of you, it's going to be a handful. Jenny'd have to do it for 191. And you go and you pull the every closing and you figure out what's the source and get as specific as you possibly can. Jenny's saying 40% comes from her local database. And by the way, she can even chunk that down even more. And you go and you figure out every source. And then what you do is this, you list all 10 and then you figure out which ones are the top 5 or 4. You rank them. You put them in order. So if you got, 10 from door knocking, I'm reading from page 55 of the shift book. Again, some of you, you're in the workbook and you don't need that for what I'm in right now. I'm not in the workbook right now, so don't worry about it. Close that tab on your computer. Don't pay any attention to that. Just roll with me. But if you write down shift page 55, and again, you don't need it. I'm reading it to you, so you're good. But if you went down and said, okay, you know what? I got 10 from door knocking. Maybe you're Irene from yesterday. You got 10 from door knocking. You got 7 from calling your sphere. You got 2 from agent referrals. You got 7 from your newsletter and so on and so forth. And you go rank them. You get 5 from open houses. 14 of them are expireds. 4 are sign calls. 4 are client parties. Okay, so then you prioritize them. And in this case, you find out, you know what? Oh my gosh, look at the list. I got expireds was the most. Got 14 from expireds. And I got 10 from door knocking. That was number 2. I got 7 from calling my database. So that was number 3. I got another 7 from my newsletter that I send out. So that's number 4. And I got 5 from open houses. That was number 5. All right. So you list your top 10, and then you figure out what are your top 5. And then you double down on those. Double down. Do more of what's working. So in this example, this person, say they got 14 closings from expired listings. They're following, of course, all the TCPA rules and following the rules and paying attention to the do not call list and doing it all the right way. And what they do is, they say, I call 5 expired listings a day, and it led to 14 closings. And we're saying double down on that. So you were doing 5, and 5 times 2 is 10. So I'm going to call 10 a day. And door knocking, you know what? I was door knocking 25 doors a week. And I got 10 from that. So 25 times 2, well, that's 50. I'm going to door knock 50 doors a week now. You know what? I got 5 from open houses, and I'm doing 1 open house a month. I'm going to do 2 open houses a month now, because 1 times 2 is 2. Now, some of you are looking and going, well, I haven't sold any houses yet. And so 2 times 0 is 0. So I guess I don't have anything to do. No, we got to do something, right? It's starting with that local database first. So you figure out what's working, and you double down on what's working. Got to pay attention to those numbers and know where it's coming from. Now, the other piece then, which we talked about yesterday, is making sure that everything you do has a MOFR attached to it. MOFIR, make offer for immediate response. In other words, what's the reason why they'd want to connect with you right now? Is it because you're going to give them a value on their home? Is it because you know of homes that are off the market and not available to everybody else, but you can get them to them? You got to figure out what is your MOFR. And we gave you a whole bunch of ideas around that yesterday, is understanding what your MOFR is. And then you just have to simply get after it. That's the bottom line. Now, the next thing I want to cover is, and George, I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry, buddy. Let me fix this, because I want to talk about the amount of time we're spending doing this. All right, hold on. All right, there we go. We've got a time block to make it work. It's about putting it together. And here's what we know. Successful people time block 3 things. First, they make a list of all the vacations. I'm just reading from page 75 of Shift. First, they make a list of all the vacations and the time off they want for the year, and they put them on their calendar. And that way you're working around your time off instead of trying to put your time off in when you're working. And we've learned from MAPS coach Jordan Freed about the 1-3-7 strategy. And we learned it through Jenny, actually. She shared it with us because Jordan's her coach. And Jordan says, have one dedicated day that you are not going to do real estate. I don't care what day. It could be Wednesday, Sunday, Tuesday. It doesn't matter to me. Taco Tuesday would be a great day to take off. Breakfast tacos, lunch tacos, dinner tacos, dessert tacos. Tuesday, take the day off. Be a great day. That's the one dedicated off day every single week. The next one is 1 3-day weekend a month. And if you look at your calendar, most calendars have a dedicated off day. They've got it already there, a dedicated 3-day weekend. It's already mapped out for you. And then 1 7-day vacation a quarter. You block that off. Then the next thing you're going to do is block off your lead generation time. And the strategy you see on your screen right now is how your lead generation works. It's called prepare, take action, maintain. Now, I'm not into, I'm going to lead generate for X number of hours. A lot of people say, hey, I got to lead generate for 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever. I don't care how many hours it is. What I care about is Did you get your number of appointments you need that day in order to win and reach your goal? That's what I care about. And the way you do that is prepare. And prepare is going to be a segment of time that maybe you're getting on some type of mastermind call. We do one every weekday at 8 o'clock Eastern in Pivot Shift Ahead that you could be on. So some sort of mastermind to get your mindset right. Get into some role play and conversation practice, and that's part of your prepare. And then maybe you need to figure out who you're going to call. What numbers do I need to pull? What am I going to do? And that's part of your lead gen. And then you take action. You actually do the things that you're supposed to do. Start to take action toward those things, and then you maintain whatever opportunity comes from it. You've got to follow up. Do I need to do a CMA for them? Do I need to email them a vendor because they want to get their house painted? You got to think about what might they need from me. That's how you win every day. And if you jot down in wherever you're taking notes, jot down shift page 79, and Gary on that page walks through what's a prospecting activity and what's an action activity and all of those things. Here's your goal. Your goal is consistent lead generation and consistent business. And the way that you do it is you see your job as this: lead generation first and servicing second. And the reason you do that is because if you have that attitude today, in the hottest seller market that we've ever experienced on the planet, if you have the attitude today that your job is lead generation first and service second, then when the market shifts, you will win. You will stay in the game. You will see your opportunity grow. Gary says to us on page 80 of the Shift book, he says, the way to think about this is the way you think about going to the movies. When you go to the movies, you turn off your phone. You don't allow for any distractions or disruptions. And for a couple of hours, you focus on the movie. Unless there is an absolute crisis, you do not interrupt the movie. And it works for you. You do this all the time for personal pleasure. So now I want you to do it for your business success. I want you to go to the movies every day, at least 5 days a week, for 3 hours in the morning and 1.5 hours up to 2 evenings a week. Go to the movies, keep the phone off, and get after it. That's how you win. A lot of people say, James, my big why, man, it's my family. That's why I got in this business. I want to provide for my family, provide opportunities. You know what? I don't, this is not how I fund my life, but we're going to go on vacations through this, or where I'm going to put my kids in private school or whatever. Or they say, you know what, this is how we fund our life through my business. And man, I do it for my family, but then we don't always act like it. What happens is when it comes time to reach out to somebody and we look at our phone or whatever is on our, whoever's on our list that day to reach out to and connect with, some go, oh my gosh, I don't want to call them. I don't know what to say. And I don't want to bother them. And what if they say no? And by the way, if you've ever thought any of those things, just put me in the chat. Yep, me, I've done that. And we look at that and we go, I don't know what I'll say, or what if they don't want to talk to me, or what if they don't need my help, or what if they're busy, or whatever, I don't want to bother them. And we do that all the time. But then you also say that you're in this business so that you can, because your family is your big why and you want to help your family. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to get to the point where we care more about the people who live inside our house than the people who live outside of it. Every time we're supposed to sit down and do our lead generation, but we choose not to because we're worried about the reaction of someone else, we are paying more attention to someone who lives outside of our house than someone who lives inside of it. The difference is the people inside of your house are not complaining to you. Well, maybe they are. I don't know. You ever had that where you're getting ready in the morning and your spouse looks in the bathroom mirror? They never look right at you when they ask this conversation. It's like you're in the bathroom doing stuff and they look at you through the mirror. When's your next closing? You ever had that happen? When's your next closing? But the truth is they don't complain to you. They don't get mad at you. Someday they say, hey, maybe you need to get a real job, but you actually already have one. You just aren't showing up for work. Let's get to the point where we care more about the people who live in our house than outside of it, and we do whatever it takes. Here's the end of it, and then we're going to bring in our panel. Page 81 of Shift says lead generation is a contact sport with simple rules. It means making contact with people through prospecting and marketing. And then once you meet your contacts, you either do business with them right away or you don't. And either way, once you've met them, you put them in a database and you stay in touch with them forever. Your number one job as a real estate agent is to find ways to get into the path of motivated buyers and sellers. All right. I hope we're off to a good start and we're excited to be here today because I'm excited to be with you. And what we're going to do now for the rest of the day, it's the parade of panels. And our whole team, we've got George and Caitlin and Lisa and Grace, and they're like clicking all the crazy buttons to get everybody in and out. But I'm excited about our first panel because we're going to talk about strategies right now with sellers. So we've got Denny Grimes and Jenny Wallach and Marcy Chambers Smith, and the three of you. You can all flip your cameras on and unmute yourselves because I'm excited to talk with all three of you. There's Jenny. Good to see Jenny. There's Marcy, and Denny's got to just flip his camera on. Denny, we just need your camera on. And I'm so excited to be able to talk with each of you because you've got amazing stuff to share. Now, here's the deal. Lisa, do we need to do something to help Denny's camera? There we go. Got it. All right. So we're going to kind of go through a process because here's what happens. Yesterday, Denny and Marcy and Jenny, we interviewed some people to talk about how are we getting in front of potential sellers. And Gary Keller taught us at Family Reunion that our job as real estate agents is to provide perspective on the market to potential buyers and sellers, to interpret what's happening and share stuff with them. And so now what we're going to talk about is, hey, what's the process look like when we find someone that's thinking about selling? And so, Denny, we're going to start with you. Would you introduce yourself to everybody, tell everyone a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
You bet. Thanks for the introduction, James. Yeah, I'm Denny Grimes. I'm in Southwest Florida. I have an office in Naples and Fort Myers. I have a 7th level team. Really, it's 6.98 most of the time. And I'm a bold coach. I've been in real estate just about 40 years. And I love sharing the ideas that I've learned. And the ideas I've learned the most from the sales that didn't happen, James.
Well, and that's what we're going to talk about is how to get more of them to happen with your expertise. And so I'm really excited to talk with you. And the main thing is we're going to start with you because you're going to walk us through, hey, we've met someone who's maybe said, you know what, we're thinking about selling. And we have a lot of people right now. I know, Jenny, you got a lot of people, and Marcy, you too. You all three of you all have a lot of people who say, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I just was talking to a friend of mine today at lunch, Denny, and we were talking about selling. And there, like I mentioned earlier, there's a house that just went on the market in my neighborhood. And in 3 months' time, they bought it 3 months ago. And in 3 months' time, they've seen the value go up by about $50,000. And my friend said, yeah, but where are they going to go? Right? Because in our zip code, Denny, here in Safety Harbor, Florida, there's 3 homes for sale in the entire zip code. And so they go, where do I want to go? Denny, I know that you're hearing that question a lot when you guys do the amount of business you do in Southwest Florida. That's the question. And it's the most common objection I'm hearing right now. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think it's the number one objection we're hearing all across the country, if not even beyond.
Well, if we have 1.3 months worth of inventory, of course, that's going to be a big objection. And yet people are finding places to go. If you looked at the data from 2021, it was a top 3 or 4 year in the history of real estate sales. So it's not that we don't have any inventory. We just don't have it on the market for very long. Denny, what does a conversation look like? You are a master at just understanding how to kind of overcome those objections. What's a conversation look like for that?
Well, I've kind of dubbed this type of a situation, a seller that would love to sell, yet they're afraid of where to go, the homeless seller.
I have a couple of, I'm sorry, I have to time out because I just need everyone to recognize how prepared Denny Grimes is. He's got a fancy monitor with graphics. I just, can you all give Denny Grimes some love in the chat that he has put together? Jenny, where's your monitor and graphics? And Marcy, where is yours? Because Denny is going all out today. All right. I'm so proud of you. So let's talk about
the best for you, James.
Seller.
Nothing but the best. So as we know, and even came out of Bold and other sales books, there's systems and models. Gary Keller, we talk about that in Shift all the time. So I'm going to quickly walk you through the system and model of how I handle a seller that basically is the homeless seller. Now, when you have an objection, you don't want to be sad about it because if they weren't interested, they just walk away, right? So you write it down, an objection is your friend. So the model to handle any objection is very simple. You acknowledge it, isolate it, answer, and close. Now, I'm not going to spend time on that because I'm going to go to the specific of the homeless seller, because we're going to follow that model and do this. When you have a seller that says, well, yeah, I'd love to sell my house, I'm just not sure where I'm going to go. You want to make sure you isolate, because if you don't isolate any objection, you'll never be able to solve it, because there's always something in the background. And the way you isolate, James, is like, other than that, is there any other reason why you wouldn't want to take advantage of a white hot market? And if they say no, okay, so then maybe that's the big issue. Step 2 is going to be find out if they are a buyer or a seller, because that's just one simple question, James. James, do you have to sell your home here in order to buy your next home?
Yes, I do.
Right. Now I'm dealing with a seller and a wanter, not a seller and a buyer, because they can't buy. So I want you to know that. Now, if they can buy, then you might want to take them down the buying road, secure a home there, and then you can come back and sell their home in about 16 seconds.
Now, by the way, Denny, that would be great, because that would be the fastest way to do it. And quite frankly, I know we'll role play this in a minute after you kind of go through it. But if we do ask the question, hey, do you need to sell to buy? And they say, no, I don't. Then you actually don't have any problems, do you? You just need to go find the house they need to buy.
Yeah, it's simple. And we can role play that really simple, James. It's like, okay, so it sounds like we're having a buyer conversation. Is that right?
Yes.
There you go. It's not a listing conversation anymore. However, we need to know. And you know what, you guys, every seller and buyer has a picture in their mind. And the only way we know what their picture is to ask them great questions. Don't guess. Next. Okay, well, James, so you have to sell first. So let me ask you, what is your plan to get from your house here right now to where you want to be over there in Treasure Cove?
I have no idea. What do you mean?
Well, you do want to move, right?
Yes.
And again, we don't have time to go into the motivation. You know why. You'll have time to get into that. You've got a new baby coming. You want a home office, and you want to be able to
definitely do not have a new baby coming, just to put that out there for the record.
You want to put a pickleball court in your backyard. So
That's
all
it.
that stuff, right? So then, okay, so so they don't have a plan. That's okay. Many times they'll say, well, I don't know. That's why I hired you. You want to just ask them to think about it, because here's what I want you to kind of write down. Don't solve a problem they don't know they have. They have to identify. They can't get from where they are to where they're going in this market. There's nobody taking an offer subject to, and they're not going to say, oh, please, pretty please, Mr. Salver, you hold your house. I promise I'll sell my house really fast. That ain't happening. Next. The next thing you have to do is that, okay, so you've been looking over there. You think you said Safety Harbor. I have your neighborhood right, James?
Yep. I live in Safety Harbor. You got it.
So you want a bigger home in Safety Harbor for the pickleball backyard. So have you been looking and watching the market?
Every day. That's the first thing we do when we get up every morning.
So, all right, so watch. And then do you see homes that come up that if you had your equity that you would love to go and move into?
Absolutely. There was one that just came on yesterday, but I'm worried it's going to be gone by Saturday.
Yes. Now here's the next question. These are very important. Can you afford those homes? Provided you got your number on your house, can you afford the homes you're looking at?
I believe we could. Yes, Denny.
Okay. And how often do you see these homes come up?
Not very often. This year, I think it's only the third one that's come on the market.
Anyone want to take a wild guess why you want to know how often they turn? Because the answer is, if they see one about every 16 days, then you know, they'll say, well, I see them every couple of weeks. Oh, okay. If they see, like, I've only seen one this year, now you're knowing you're going to have to find a buyer that basically will give them a longer post-closing possession. Mm-hmm. And then you go into the last step, James, is what if? What if there was a way we could get you? What if you could find an app on your phone? The app would give you your equity, and you could stay in your home until the right home came along, and you could buy it and have one move. What would you download that app?
100%.
Now that's called Checkmate. I didn't solve their problem yet. However, I got there. That if you could do that, I would do it. Now I don't have that app. However, I have another idea. So James, I don't know how much time you have. Do you want to role play this really quick?
Yeah, let's start from the beginning. That's a really good place to start. So let's go all the way back, and I'll give you my objection of, well, where are we going to go? And we'll just role play the whole thing through. Does that sound good? We got plenty of time, Denny. All right. So Denny, we would love to sell, but here's the thing. I don't know where we're going to go. I log into the app every morning. There's like a house comes on once a month. It's gone by the weekend. I have no idea where we would go. So that's why I'm worried about selling right now.
I understand. There's the acknowledgement. Other than that, is there any other reason why you want to take advantage of this market right now?
No, that's it. We just don't want to be homeless.
I got that. So, well, let me ask you a question. If there was a way that we could get you from here to there, would you want to explore that avenue?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let me ask you, do you have to sell this home here in order to buy your next home?
We do, yeah. With the way prices are and the type of home we want to move into and what it costs, we got to take advantage of the equity in this house to be able to go buy the next one.
I understand, sure. So, what's your plan? I know you want the bigger house and the big backyard, and selling is easy. However, what's your plan to get to the next house?
I have no idea what we're going to do. We don't really have anywhere to go. So if we sell the house now, there's not really an option of somewhere to go. We don't have like a backup plan of any kind. You can't rent for less than 7 months in Florida. So Denny, I have no idea what we're going to do. Ideally, we sell and then like we have that closing and then we walk out of the hall and go into the next room and have the next closing and get our keys. That's ideally what happens.
Now here I'm stepping out of role. You could suggest, well, would you find anywhere to stay? Would you look for a short-term rental or a bridge loan? There's all these other things you could suggest. No. Most of them, they want to do one.
Right, I'm saying no to all those things. I don't want to
Yep.
do any of that. I just want to sell my house and move to the next one.
Got it. So the next step is, all right, so you've been looking online, you see them every day, and if you had your equity, you take advantage of them. Are these homes you could not only enjoy, you could afford?
Yes. Yeah. I believe that we can based on the equity we have in our house and we've talked to a lender, we've got our approval. So yes, I do believe we're in the right price range.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you see the homes come up on your phone?
You know what? It seems like maybe once a month, once every 5 weeks or so, something comes on that works for us. But Denny, it's gone in like 3 days.
Yes, I totally understand. I hear this a lot. So what if there was a way? What if there's a way that you could get your equity temporarily? Get your number so you had your equity, and then you could be a cash buyer or at least a fully approved buyer stepping out into the market. You could secure that next home with a big yard with a pickleball court in the backyard, and then come back and sell your house and have one move. What if there's a way to do that? Would you want to know about it?
Sign me up. That's exactly what we want to do, but I have the slightest idea how that would be possible right now.
Well, congratulations. You know what we call you in this industry?
What?
You're the golden seller.
That's nice. I've got a golden cricket, so I'm glad to know I'm the golden seller.
And you know what a golden seller is?
What?
You're an answer to the many buyers' wishes and prayers, because you are the golden seller, because there's buyers out there hoping and looking for a seller just like you, because they want to come into this area, secure a home, lock in a price, and not have to worry about maintaining the home because they're not ready to move down yet or move yet. So what would it look like to you if we could find that special buyer that would give you what you want for your home? You got your number, you got your equity, and they'll allow you to stay there for a month, maybe 2 months after closing until the right home came along. Would that idea work for you?
You're saying to sell the house to them, but like we stay here and rent it from them for a while.
Well, you could rent it, or maybe we build it in. Maybe you don't even have to pay rent. That's something we can talk about. However, there's another term we use in the South. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can have your money and stay in your home and go find the right house without any pressure. Does that make sense?
It does. And Denny, if we can do that, we're all in.
So that's a very simple, condensed version. And if somebody's rational and that is their isolated objection, I dare someone to give me a rational reason why that would not work. We have a buyer that will go give the seller up to 18 months. Don't make this complicated, guys. There's a buyer that will match any seller's needs out there in this market.
So you, as the listing agent, you work with your seller and help determine what are those needs. And then Denny, what it sounds like, and by the way, you're talking about doing a lease back of some kind. And I've just got to give the disclaimer that talk with your broker about how to make this work in your market, right? You've got to go down. If you're going to do this, and you might be doing it already, the idea is certainly not new. It's been going on forever, but you've got to go on and talk with your broker about how to pull it off in your local area. And yet, Denny, you've found people to list in this way. My guess is that this is an opportunity for the seller to say, look, here's my wish list of things. These are my terms Now let's go find the buyer that'll meet those terms. And that's happening in this market.
It's the greatest market since Noah. So if the seller does not take advantage of this market, like what market will they step into?
Well, one that's not any better than this, right? I mean, Denny, you say you've been in the business 40 years. Have you seen anything like this in your 40 years?
I have not.
Yeah.
I'll make one prediction. In 30 years from now, there will be grandparents reading to their children the book, The Greatest Market That Ever Was, 2021.
No doubt about it. I love that. Denny, with your team does a ton of business in Southwest Florida, and I know you got a great team. Your daughter's heavily involved and all that kind of stuff. But what percentage of your people, just as a guess, kind of are actually ending up staying in their homes for a period of time, or having to even use that particular strategy?
Well, we are now getting very proactive with that. We practice this script every day in a scripted role play every day. So, or conversation or role play, forgive me. And what happens is that it gives us an opportunity. It gives them another arrow in the quiver, so to speak, to have a conversation. We're being able to pull in off-market listings. Now, they may not even sign a listing agreement right away. That's okay. We'll help them find the next home. And the other side of the coin, I know you'll be talking about buyers later. Guess what? Guess what the buyer is that will buy a home and let the seller stay there? They're the golden buyer. So we're advertising for golden buyers. So these are all people that have basically on the shadows that we're putting together to find and really help people meet their needs, because they want to sell and they want to buy. We're just bridging that gap.
I love it. Okay, we got a couple of questions I want to ask you. One of them, Carrie asks in Facebook. She says, "Well, what happens if the seller doesn't find the home they want after several weeks or months, and now they have to move out?" Has that happened?
I guess it technically can. However, why would they have to move out? I mean, they don't have to take a contract. Now, they may have a job situation or transfer if they have to move. Them having to move out would not be generated by what we're doing.
Yeah. So you've got a situation though, where you've got a seller who sold the house to a buyer, and now they've got to stay. They're doing a lease back for a period of time. And this person's asking, well, what if they don't find a house? But I don't think that's happening, right? Once they get their cash, now they've kind of moved up the ranking is the type of buyer. They're finding a place, right?
Theoretically, it's possible that could happen. However, that's why I go through the questions. How often do you see them? Can you afford them? How much time would you need? They set that parameter. And it basically, there would have to be a catastrophic failure for that to happen. And great question. It just hasn't happened to us yet. Every seller that we've done help with this program has been able to find a home and very happy about their move.
Denny, I love it. There's another question that came in from Alyssa, and she says, what's the conversation like with sellers who love what they're getting for their house they're selling, but think they're overpaying for the house they're buying in this market? How do you handle that one, Denny?
Okay, really quick. So James, what you're saying is you'd rather buy when the market's falling?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that means we'd have to sell when the market's falling.
Well, I don't want to do that.
Well, there's a saying, you want to be able to buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a seller. So what do we have to do first?
We have to sell
high.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the market, don't step into it. Find something temporary. Find a rental. Wait for the market to crash if that's what you think. However,
I don't want to do that. I want to live in this house in this neighborhood, Denny.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, if you'd have bought a house last year, made the move last year, would you be better off?
Maybe.
Well, it's gone up 20% in the last year.
Yeah,
so
right. So I'd have paid less, but I'd have gotten less. So I guess what you're telling me is the market I sell in is the market I buy in.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. A lot of people in the chat, you're asking questions that are questions for your broker. All right. So if you've got specific questions about, well, what do I need this clause and do I need this form and how does this work? I'm telling you, Denny, we're talking at a 30,000 foot level here to give you ideas and concepts that you can go implement. And it's up to you to go to your broker and find out how specifically you would do that in your market. Denny, before we wrap up and go to Jenny, what are any other common objections you're hearing or other stuff that you want to share before we move forward? And then I do want you to stay on. So as we get through everybody, we can come back and wrap up. But any other kind of final thoughts before we go to Jenny with the next piece?
Well, you may want to cover it sometime during your presentation if you haven't already. You know what the number one buyer objection is?
What is it?
I don't want to buy in this market. I don't want to overpay.
Yeah. So how are we
So-
overcoming that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the isolate. Other than that, is there any other reason why you went to cash, make a wise investment in this market?
No,
Okay. What you currently own now, or are you renting?
we own.
Okay. Well, now you're dealing with an owner now is a different conversation because they're already on the escalator. And so I know I don't want to cut into Jenny's time. One of the concepts that we don't ever talk about anymore, and I know it's in Shift, we never say seller's market because that makes the buyer feel like they're losing. So we call it a winner's market. Sellers win, buyers win. The buyers win because as soon as they get a house under contract, they've locked in that price. Now they're riding the equity elevator up, just like the sellers. So buyers win, sellers will win. You know who loses? Lookers. You do want to win, don't you?
I do. I love it. Denny, thank you. It's always a joy having you on. Stick around.
All
All
right.
right. So you've overcome the objection. You get the listing. Jenny, we're going to bring you in now. And I know you told us a little bit about your team, but I want you to do it again. Do a quick reset for the people that have joined. Tell us a little bit about you and who you are and where you are and what you guys do.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm Jenny Wallach in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have an awesome team here. There's about 10 of us, about half agents, half admin and ops. And like I said, half our business, 50%, James, comes from our local database, 30% from our agent database, and then other lead sources as well. And really, truly, I mean, we just really have a culture based on helping families. We love giving back to our community. And that's our goal every single day. So we got to help almost 200 families last year here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, you do a great job. Your team is awesome. And what you're coming in the picture now to kind of talk about then the next step of this. So we followed kind of the ideas that Denny has given us, and you've gone out and you've gotten this listing and you've walked through all their options. And we're going to talk with you about a couple of things. Number one, how do we leverage that listing to create more listings? And then number two, what kind of customer service do we need to provide to our listings so that they're happy through this process and we get more referrals? So let's first talk about strategies on leveraging the listing to get more, because they're instant sales right now and it's how you win. So what are some thoughts around that, Jenny?
You know, there's so many, and I'll just kind of start where Denny wrapped up is, how deep he just went in really understanding his clients and their needs and their dreams and their desires. And so first, everything is going to start there with us as well, as understanding their behavioral style. We got to make sure that in this fast-paced, low active inventory market that our sellers understand and they don't get overwhelmed and stressed out and anxious, even though they're making more money than they've ever made before. And so what I realized as a business owner, this is fun. Woohoo! 21 years in the business. Like Denny, I've never seen it like this. We've had to learn all these new techniques and terminologies to maximize our opportunities. And the listings are selling in a minute. Well, we lost all the chances of earning a buyer or seller lead to help. And so how could we create around each new listing, because we aren't having as many as we used to, which is crazy and scary and amazing opportunity for us, right? And so just as a team, like this week, our team meeting, we reevaluated and had more conversations around the listing process so that we are maximizing the time that we have. So for example, our value proposition on our team and with our clients is that we're going to deliver on our promise. And our promise is that we serve them at such a high level. They have a great experience. We're going to get all the way through this process with hopefully eliminating as many, stress and speed bumps along the way. They get to the closing table. That's the goal here. And what was happening is we're going so fast through all that sometimes things still pop up and now or deals bust. And so a part of our promise is that we have this value proposition of implementing our coming soon programs. Our coming soon program and also our certified pre-owned home program. So we're offering up these ideas that can help them get through with the first buyer and not have the deal bust. And so
it's really important. Real quick, I want to pop in because you brought up something. Yeah. When the market's moving as quickly as it is, it exposes more opportunities to make mistakes. That's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah. When it picks up speed like it is right now, that you go list a home and the second you put it in the MLS, there are 72 showing requests. You've already had 3 offers come in from people who haven't seen it. You haven't even had your pictures done or whatever. Like we actually expose ourselves to mistakes that could cause a frustration for the seller. How are you slowing down at a time that it's still moving so quickly, Jenny?
And that's exactly what we say every week and every morning. Our agents hop on a huddle and they practice and role play and talk about these objections and challenges that are going on. And we just keep saying to ourselves, we need to slow down to go fast. And so this certified pre-owned home program, the whole idea, we implemented it years ago in a different kind of market, and it worked great back then. And the idea here is that, hey, sellers, here's the deal. It's not necessarily a challenge to get a buyer in this market. What could be the challenge is keeping the deal together. So let's just go ahead and eliminate any of those objections that can pop up during our contract. So in Oklahoma, at least, the buyers may offer to buy the home as is. They still have an inspection period and they can still get out of the contract and get their earnest money back in most cases. And so let's just eliminate any of those problems, like a roof inspection and a structural inspection, termite, wood rot, any electrical, mechanical, plumbing things that can come up. Because now, buyers right now are paying over list price. They're offering faster and maybe feeling pressure and then feeling some buyer remorse. And we don't want them to feel that. We want them to feel like they're purchasing a home that's in good condition and has a clean bill of health. And usually those buyers end up just using the inspections that have already been done on the property. And so this has really helped our sellers to get through the process easier with less stress. Many things don't come up like they used to. Now, with that though, James, the part about how can we maximize our time on the market is implementing our Coming Soon campaign.
Okay, real quick. So before you go there, I just want to point out that what you just taught us, this is straight out of the Shift book. It's page 246 of the Shift book, where Gary says, have sellers get a pre-inspection. And a lot of people think, well, that's a strategy in a buyer's market to prove to the buyer that this house is in good shape when they have so many choices. And by the way, Jenny, from what I think I'm hearing you say, that's likely when you implemented that strategy. Yes. was in a market like that, so that your listings would be more attractive to potential buyers because they had 72 choices instead of one. There was one buyer for 72 homes instead of 72 buyers for one home. But what you're saying is, and this is what I keep telling people, this book applies in this market. It just reads differently. And that's what you're saying. You're still doing the same strategy. It's just applied differently. Now the whole idea is, let's keep the buyer from having an excuse from backing out because they freak out about something. We've already covered it, right? Is that what you're doing?
It's so crazy. In the early days of the pandemic of 2020 and 2021, we just put this off. We didn't need to offer this to our clients because, just to be honest, we offer it as a special. Like, we run it through the winter and springtime because we want the opportunity to take more listings and to have a value proposition for our clients. So we partner with our local inspector. They give us a little bit of a discount. They're happy because they're getting double the business from us. And it just really helps our sellers. Now, I used to live in fear around this because I thought, well, if they have inspections, now they're going to know all the stuff that's wrong with it.
Right. Well, that's what's blowing up in the chat. They're going, well, now I have disclosure things and stuff like that. Look, you got to fix the stuff or disclose it anyway, because it's like, this is the thing. We're going to find out if they're going to get an inspection. Probably this stuff's going to find out. Let's find out now and either disclose it, which is probably your best option in today's market. You just say, by the way, the roof has a ginormous hole in it and it's leaking and you're going to have to fix it. And they go, okay, here's my $6 million. And you move on. But just disclose it and be done, because you're going to have to tell them anyway.
Well, James, here's the deal. Buyers are wanting a reason to not love the house that they just overpaid for.
Overpaid,
right?
In air quotes, yes.
Yeah. So they, whenever anything comes up, they're going to start stressing out. It's not the home they thought it was. Now the seller has all this stress. Here's the deal. If we can eliminate this on the front end, we want to do that. And it gives our sellers time to breathe. Yeah. And to have it all set up. So then at that time, James, they either fix those repairs or they disclose them and everything's cool. We're still moving along just fine. And now,
by the way, you're not preventing the buyer from getting an inspection if they want. They can still get one. And are you paying for this inspection or is your seller paying for it?
Yeah, so check with your local rules. In Oklahoma, we can purchase a inspection for our sellers.
Got it.
On the buyer side, it's called an inducement. So check your local rules. And so, yes, we pay for it up front. Now, in the different market days, James, we offered it as a value proposition, and we just tweaked up our commission a little bit to offset that cost.
Yeah.
So you guys
Okay,
do it how you want to do.
Okay, so now you're going to go coming soon. And I have to tell everybody, again, this is another thing where you need to check with your broker, because this is a thing. In some markets you can do it, in some markets you can't do it. And so you don't need to blow up the chat. Well, we can't do that in South Carolina. I understand, that's fine. But you're going to walk through a strategy that does work for you in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Right. So we were losing the opportunity to generate other business from having a listing sell in a minute. And so if we can just slow it down a bit, and our MLS allows for us to have 10 days of coming soon. And then we even realized even if the coming soon disclosure isn't signed, we still can start pre-marketing an active listing 24 hours before it goes live without an authorization. So check your rules. And that little bit of coming soon time is really an amazing thing. I found that whenever we, as a seller, as a listing agent, guys, we have so much control. We have control of our calendar. We have control of our sellers' calendars. And so set them up for success. So again, going back to Denny's conversations, you know who they are, you know their behavioral style, you know what their wants and needs are. And so set the coming soon strategy timeline and the listing date at something that works best for them. And it's a communication thing. And so what we found is we put it on, we get to promote it on social media. We can send an email out to our database. And then we are able to pre-set appointments, right? So it says coming soon, no showings, no offers until X date. So then we have appointments set up on day one of active listing. Now, how great does this feel for our sellers? But then a reminder for us as a team is like, well, did we set our sellers up for the expectation that they're going to get bombarded on this day? So this is where the communication, all hands on deck, and everybody, our team is having the best results by having a group text with the agent, the admin, and the client. And everybody is all there together to support each other and cheer each other on through this exciting time. But what we're finding is with that coming soon, we're able to generate other business for us. We can have buyers who want to see the house the day that it's available. We're growing our database of potential people to help. And then just once, James, we get them going on the active market, I mean, we're doing, again, like I like calling it a mini farm around this house. We're calling the neighborhood. We are sending just listed postcards, providing the info, all of the social media and graphics, and sharing and tagging as a team. Once it goes pending, because it's going to go pending pretty quick, we're going to use that data. Like, for example, under contract, 12 showings, 7 offers, sellers are super excited because you can't quote what it's sold for yet, right? But still use that as your marketing message because it's showing everybody you're a professional, you stand out from the crowd, and you're helping your clients. Lastly, once they close, James, we're sending out the golden letter to the neighborhood, and the generic golden letter goes in the mail, not handwritten, it's typed out and signed by me. And I got one to my own house last week. My husband was like, maybe I should sell. But the letter said, it was very generic, and it just says, hello, James, would you be interested in selling your home at 123 Main Street to a buyer of ours? Period. Since we got more purposeful about implementing this again on February 1st, we've already gotten 11 calls and leads, 3 appointments set. One of those has 2 houses to sell. And then with that, we're sending the just listed postcard to the neighborhood with the great content and information as well. With communication with our clients, it's so important to communicate.
Yep.
And it's not just through the text machine or the email.
Right.
And it's really a standard on our team that conversations that are more than just a yes or no are a phone conversation.
Yep.
There's so much that can get lost in translation, and we have to make them feel good about the process.
Jenny, what you have recognized is that one of the main purposes of a listing is to bring more business to your company, right? To your real estate business. And so when things move so quickly, remember Jim told us yesterday, the average days on market right now in the US is 19 days. Now, I don't know if that's in line with what you have in Tulsa or not, but it's 19 days. Now, I remember when it was like 180. And so you had all of this marketing time, but when a house moves in 19 days, you've lost this massive amount of runway that allows you to generate more business. So what you're doing through your Coming Soon program, which you can do if it's available in your market. If it's not, though, you just gave us a bunch of other strategies we can still do. But what you're doing is creating the runway to remind people, hey, this is what we do. We're actually really good at it, and we can help more people that you know. And then I love that you're continuing your marketing after the home is under contract by saying things like, in some states, you cannot do this. So again, you've got to check with your state, because there's some states that you cannot disclose certain things. So again, talk with your broker. But in Oklahoma, you can say, we got X number of offers, right? We had X number of showings. Once it sells in Oklahoma, can you disclose the sale price in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so once it closes, we can say it sold for $50,000 over list price, and sending it to their neighborhood. They can see. And then of course the MOFers, James, are curious about the value of your home. Go to our free home value website to get, and we've been, those inquiries have gone up in the last
couple. Of course they have. Yeah, of course they have. And then you're sending the golden letter. And if you need help on how to do that, whatsthegoldenletter.com is a full like 20-minute call we did on that. Now, the one you'll see there is different from the one Jenny is doing. The one we show you there is designed for your database. But Jenny, oh my gosh, could it be any more simple? Yeah. Your letter is like 2 sentences. It's a golden Post-it note is what it is. What does your letter say again?
It says, hello, James, because of course it mail merges and we are super fancy like that. And it says, would you be interested in selling your home to a buyer of ours? Let us know if you are.
That's it. Done. You've had 11 inquiries on that since February 1st.
Yes.
It's March 10th. Jenny, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Stay on because we might come back to you. Okay, so Denny says, here's how you get the listing. Here's how you overcome the objection. Jenny says, once you get it, here's how you provide great service. And here is the process to market it correctly. And now we're going to go to Marcy. And Marcy, I'm so excited that you're here because you have become quite the celebrity here over the last few weeks. Marcy, you took, well, first introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and where you're from. Let's start there.
Sure. My name is Marcy Chambers-Smith, and I am at Keller Williams North Atlanta, which is in Alpharetta, Georgia, just north of the Atlanta proper. We call it the Atlanta metro area that we cover.
And you took a listing, Marcy, yes. That, I mean, you've taken more than one listing in your career. You have a very successful business and you're a great agent. You took a listing from someone that turned out it was quite possible. It was quite popular.
Yes. So the listing was some folks that I had helped buy the home contacted me in June of 2020 and said, we would like to buy a bigger home. And of course, right at the time, it was kind of the beginnings of everybody freaking out from COVID. So we weren't quite sure what was going to happen with the market, but they wanted to buy a bigger home. And we did exactly what Denny said to do and figured out, are you actually a buyer or are you a seller? Because they knew that they wanted to buy a bigger home, and that was going to be probably the priority before we put their house on the market. The house that they owned was beautiful. We knew it would sell in a New York minute. And so they, first of all, became buyers before they became sellers. And we spent that entire time finding them a home to purchase and finally got them under contract in the fall of 2021. It took us that long to find them the house. And they were under contract.
You're talking like a year and a half, Marcy. Yeah, from start to even find the house. Okay, keep going.
Yep. Because they had very specific neighborhoods that they wanted to purchase in, which we, by the way, sent golden letters to all of those neighborhoods. And the house they found was a result of doing the golden letter that we sent to the neighborhood. So
y'all just do the work. This is the bottom line. Just do the stuff. Yep. Actually, you don't even have time to be on here. Just hang up on the call. Don't do that. No. And start talking to your people and sending the letters and marketing your listings. Okay, Marcy, keep it rolling.
So we found the house, got them under contract. We knew we were going to have a window of time because the people we were buying from were building a home. So they had a long time frame. We had a flexible time frame. So, and that got pushed because of construction logistics, that was happening here at the beginning of 2022. So we then finally had a solid closing date to buy the home that they want. So we knew when to list the house, which we decided would be January after the holidays and after they got back from a trip. We worked with them, like Jenny said, figure out their time frame, and they had a trip. They didn't want to have the house on the market until after they got back from that.
So they get home, you get it, you get all the paperwork done, they sign. Yep. You get your sign in the yard, you get your pictures done, you get all your whoozy wutsies, you put it in the MLS, and then it got crazy.
Yes. So we did a coming soon, like Jenny said, and because we wanted to get some excitement around the house. And even during the coming soon period, we already were seeing rumblings of this going to be crazy because we received offers before it went live. We had showings set up. The first full day was booked completely before we could even go live. And then it went live and pandemonium broke out at this listing.
You actually had the sheriff's department there directing traffic. Is that right?
At the open house. Yes. We had several days of showings that we planned. We went live on a Wednesday. We were planning to close out offers on Sunday evening after the open house. And so we did several days of showings, which we ended up having to just man like 3-day open houses because the appointments, people were just coming in droves to the house. So by the Sunday open house, we knew it was going to be crazy at that. And we probably had, I would say, 200 to 300 people through the house prior to the open house. And then at the open house, we figure it's probably around 600 people attempted to attend the open house. The sheriff showed up twice to help direct traffic, but it was the next door neighbor boys were selling donuts in their driveway. They had their own little business going to piggyback off of it. It was a wonderful, wonderful, exciting and wild ride as far as getting to the deadline of offers.
Yeah, you actually got a call from another agent in the community that said, you need to get over here. You got to help kind of handle some of this. And you got the police out there and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so you kind of say, all right, turning your offers. How many offers did you get?
So grand total, we've received 155 offers on the property.
So after you passed
now, I will say this, the communication with the sellers is important because immediately they obviously started getting a little nervous because there was a lot of people coming through their house and they still live there. And so one of the things that I felt was priority for me was to make them feel safe, to make them know that I am the frontline, person protecting their property so that they had a great house to sell at the end of this whole thing, keeping them safe, keeping their kids safe, and also managing the throngs of people that were coming through the house. So that we had to have many conversations with the sellers, making sure they felt comfortable because in the end, it's their decision. If they wanted to shut it down, that's their choice and we do what they want. But also a little bit of conversation of if we continue for a while, if you hang on, I think we can manage this. And I think you're going to end up getting a phenomenal result out of this. Mm-hmm. So it's a double-edged sword with cutting it down early. You probably have a decent offer, but we might not have a phenomenal offer if we just ride this out a little bit. And so it was balancing their concerns with also helping them understand what the potential could be if we continued on.
Great communication. I mean, you're saying, hey, if at any point you want to pull the plug, we can shut this thing down. We're done.
Yep.
And yet here's your opportunity if you keep going, and then they can make a decision based on that. Great service from you. I'm proud of you for that. So really, really well done. Okay. So let's keep it rolling. So now what you do is you get these 155 offers, which is a massive number of offers. I don't even know what you would have done with that. So now you have to, you've got to now kind of figure out how are we even going to look at these, right? Because you've got to present all offers and you got to go through the process. So what did you do? And I want everyone to listen because the strategy Marcy's going to give you works if you have 5 offers or
Yeah.
155 offers. And
It-
so
yeah.
she's got the extreme level of it, and yet she's going to chunk down the exact system to follow. So pay very close attention. Go ahead, Marcy.
So and for everybody, I didn't mention this. I'm a solo agent with an admin. And my admin is my daughter, who is a very capable, wonderful, full-time professional admin. And then I always say that my husband is kind of the ghost employee of my business as well. But what we did is the same system that we actually use on other listings, whether they get 3 offers or 155 offers. We have a spreadsheet that we have utilized to help decipher all of the ins and outs and make easy apples to apples comparison for offers. But we processed every single offer that came in, and we took the PDFs of the offer documents, put them in a folder, and labeled that folder with the buyer's name and the price point that their purchase price was.
All right, and this is a listing that was
with,
priced. By the way, I want to give them some context. This listing, this was listed at 500,000 is where this
Right.
house was priced. So you're
Yep.
getting offers starting at 500,000 and going up from there.
Yes. Actually, we did end up receiving one below list price.
Of course you did. Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
But yes, put in the purchase price in there and the buyer's name. So we had 155 folders. One offer even came in on email, just an email. Somebody who did not have an agent, they just like emailed an offer. So we put that, we printed off a PDF of the email, put that in a folder because it's an offer. It may not be on the right documents, but it is an offer. So 155 folders. Then we took those folders and we put them into like higher folders, hierarchy of, okay, here's the 500s to 550s. Here's the 550s to 600s, 600 to 650, and then 650 and above, which there were. And we then talked to the sellers and said, okay, here, we're going to present all this to you. We electronically uploaded it to Google Drive and shared that with the sellers. So they had full access to every single offer document that was received. Date and time stamped if it's uploaded to Google Drive, because you can show when the upload was and that the sellers received it. But
this
then
is
we
your
talked to
record,
them
by
and
the
said,
way. So see, we have to stop and pause. I have to interrupt from time to time, Marcy, because
Yeah,
I
no,
want
that's
people to
fine.
get it. I want people to get what you're doing. And again, this is whether you have 5 offers or 155 offers.
Yep.
But you have your cutoff date, you know when the stuff is due, then you're labeling each one in the PDF, you're putting it in buckets based on price point, and you're
Yep.
sharing it through some sort of shareable folder. And that is your proof that you have presented every single offer, right? At least according
Yes.
to your broker, your proof that you presented. It's got a time stamp, it's got a date stamp, and it shows that the seller has received it. And so this
Yeah.
is kind of the cover yourself sort of situation that, look, yeah, we're not just going pick this one. You're
Yeah.
showing them all 155 offers. They have the ability to look at every single one of them.
Yep. And they did. They dug into those files and, looked at different things. They could double check any of my numbers that I was putting in a spreadsheet. So everybody felt like they had opportunity to know all the information. And also I knew that there, at some point in this process, I'd probably get a phone call from an agent saying, did you really present the offer? Wanting to make sure. And I wanted to make sure I could answer that.
Yeah, you can say they looked at it at this day, at this time, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Okay, I love that. Now,
Then I talked to the sellers. I'm like, how much do you want to see? Because there's only so much they could wrap their brains around. And so then their decision was, we only want to see the offers at 650 and above, and put all of those in the spreadsheet so that we can compare all of the 650 and above offers. And we have everything in our spreadsheet, every single detail I can possibly put in there. There's many lines, including, was it turned in on time? Yes or no? Was it completely filled out? Yes or no? Did we have all the correct exhibits? Yes or no? Because when you have this many offers, it's going to come down to some of that stuff. There was a lot of very similar
Yeah,
offers.
it needs to be clean. So you were able to narrow it from 155 to 19, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so now you're putting 19 offers in the spreadsheet to turn over to your seller.
Correct.
Great.
One of the things that came out of that was that quite a few folks, and again, I don't know how, escalation clauses are in every single state, but we had quite a few offers that had unlimited escalation clauses. And I'm certain many of those, we knew so many of those probably did not intend for the price to be 650 or above, that their escalation clause was being triggered to. And so then part of what I needed to do then in the days following that was, before a decision was made, is contact all of those agents to say, are your buyers ready to be escalated to this price point? And
they
we
may
didn't
have
give them
written
an
at
exact price.
525, and all of a sudden we're playing at 650.
Yes.
And that is not necessarily what that buyer had in mind when they wrote the offer. Good for you. That's being a good agent, right? That's being a great agent to check in and go, hey, here's where we are. Do you all still want to play or no?
Yeah.
Right.
And mainly to save time for myself and my sellers, because I didn't want my sellers wasting time on an offer that those folks, I mean, they could have signed it and they would have turned around and canceled during due diligence, and we'd be back to,
square one.
just like Jenny was saying, we want this to stick all the way to the closing table. We don't want people to be feeling like they got looped into something they had not planned to be there. So that narrowed the number a little bit more, because some of those escalated contracts were a no-go. But then we got it down to a manageable number. And then at that point, and again, my conversation with the seller is, you can pick any offer you want to pick. It doesn't have to be the highest price. It doesn't have to be have specifics in it. This is your game. I'm here to help facilitate it. You pick whichever one you want. And then we go to town on making sure that sticks to the closing table. So,
and by the way, they picked one and it did stick to the closing table.
It did. It's closed. Yes, we're closed.
And everybody wants to know, because you can tell us in Georgia what it sold for. So it was listed for 500 and you sold it for
702,500. So 702,500. It was a 705,000 contract, which would have escalated higher had there been a trigger higher. And then we negotiated $2,500 on due diligence stuff.
It's so fun. 25. They paid $200,000 more than was listed for, but we still negotiated $2,500 in due diligence. I love it. And it's just, what was and by the way, people are asking for the spreadsheet. Folks, if you go into Pivot Shift Ahead, there is a spreadsheet in there that you can use in files, and you can do a ton of this stuff in Command. So if you go see your Market Center tech trainer, your Market Center tech trainer can teach you how you can do all of this exact stuff in Command. So it's really good. Marcy, what you gave us the thing, so you outlined it perfectly. You gave us step by step what to do. What's the final kind of lesson from this experience that you want to share with everybody?
Sure. Well, it helps to have some systems in place already when you suddenly are met with a challenge like this. So, work on those systems. Make sure that you have strong systems that you can utilize if you end up having something that goes viral like this. Communication, absolutely number one, communication with the sellers, communication with the other agents too. By the way, you can actually have a better outcome for your sellers if you're a good communicator with the buyer's agents. Because if those buyer's agents feel comfortable getting information from you, having the full story, knowing how to offer, knowing how to make a good offer that's going to be well received by the sellers, you actually are going to get better offers out of that and be able to have a better return for your sellers. We were very adamant about responding to every email that was sent to us. I think every text message that was sent to us. We did end up having to change our outgoing voicemail greeting on my phone because there was no way to answer all the phone calls. And so we used that as kind of like a bulletin. Like if somebody called in, the first thing on the outgoing message was, if you're calling about Chatsworth Lane, we are now past the deadline for submitting offers, or no appointments are available, come to the open house, or whatever we needed to say. But communication. And then we've that followed through to the responding to the buyer's agents after we picked the winning offer. So we sent out the email of your offer
lost out, right?
It broke everything down. It said, how many offers we had in the various categories. And then I just bullet listed in there without giving away the actual contract price, but I bullet listed in there the winning offer included, and it was 15 things. It was filled out correctly. It was great agent communication. That we used the preferred closing attorney, the preferred closing date, all of the things that were important to the sellers and why we selected that offer. It was not just because, and in this case, it did happen to be the highest one, but it wasn't just because of that. Because to be honest, my sellers would have taken a lesser offer had it had the other 15
other things in
things
it.
perfect for them.
And
so we sent that email
email
out, and that's been a winner too. I think that's, you know, a lot of buyers agents right now are struggling to talk to their buyers about what's going to be a winning offer. And so I'm a buyer's agent too. I'm a solo agent. So I'm always asking those listing agents, how come my folks did not get this one? And I wanted to make sure that the buyer's agents had an email or a set of data they could share with their buyers and say, okay, this is what ended up winning it. Also, the side bonus was that I didn't get as many phone calls back.
Yeah, to say what happened.
I couldn't
why didn't
answer
I get
155 phone calls about why.
Marcy, I love it. And that email, your buyer lost out email is in Pivot Shift Ahead. I don't know if it's one you use, but
I'll put it in there right after we get off.
Thank you. And we have another one in Pivot Shift Ahead. And again, I always say, whenever you pull some sort of system or tool or strategy that someone used, I would just run it by your broker to make sure you can use that in your market. So just make sure you do it. Marcy, thank you. Jenny, before we kick it, just a last final kind of thought about really working with sellers in this market that you want to share with everybody.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you know us, James, we really care about our clients and we really care about delivering a great experience. And in order to do that, you know, I shared that we utilize the promise. And so.
Oh, did we lose her? Oh, Jenny was saying something genius too. Grace, did we lose her?
We haven't earned the right to ask. Why? I see me.
Okay, you're back. Go ahead. Finish your thought, Jenny. I'm sorry, we lost you for a brief second.
Okay. So I was just saying, you know, we're such a, you know, we care about delivering on our promise and making sure that we get to the end of the clients, you know, achieving their goals of getting their home sold. And, you know, if we didn't deliver on our promise, then we haven't earned the right to ask for a referral, to ask for a review. And so that really, really ups our game as far as our communication with our clients. And so I just wrote down here, like making sure that we're sharing the message of the market, the stories of our clients, the successes. And when you get reviews afterwards, sharing those with your people so that they can see that it doesn't have to be stressful and crazy, because that's maybe what they're hearing in the market, and that we got their back all the way through.
I love it. Jenny, thank you. Denny, thank you. Marcy, thank you. Great stuff. Great strategies. I appreciate you all sharing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So you got great ideas. I'm telling you right now, you got amazing ideas. They gave you the exact strategies for you to follow to win in this market with a seller. So Marcy, Jenny, and Denny, thank you. All right. So now, as Marcy said, hey, she works with sellers and she works with buyers. And it's a whole nother story when it comes to buyers. And that's why I'm so excited about our next guest who's going to join us, Charles Holloway, who is from the area that my wife is from. He's from the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. Charles, throw that camera on for us too so we can see you. And I'm so excited because you are doing a great job working with buyers. And when we were talking the other day on the phone, I could tell you get a lot of energy working with buyers. Well, right now, so many people are it's such a challenging time to work with buyers. So I'm excited to spend some time with you and to talk about your process when it comes to buyers. Would you introduce yourself to everybody? Tell them a little bit about who you are, about your team, and about kind of your production, what you guys do.
Yeah, I'm Charles Holloway, located here in the Hampton Roads area, Newport News, Virginia, serving the coastal Virginia Peninsula area. My team name is the Holloway Experience. It's a team comprised of about 10 individuals, 4 being admin and 6 being sales. 2 of my administrative staff are licensed though, so that gives us some leverage there. Last year we did about 43 million, 181 transactions. Of those 181 transactions, 102 of those happen to be buyer books of business. We do get excited about buyers. They keep us grounded. They keep us honest in the marketplace to help us better serve and know what to anticipate with listings as well. But for me, buyers just always been a passion. I've always put myself in that situation, in that seat, remembering what that experience and the paranoia that came with that. And I always said, for as long as I was a real estate professional, I would stay true to that leg of the business because it is necessary. So.
Well, awesome. I mean, I can't even wrapping my head around 102 buyers worked with in the most challenging buyer's market in history. You definitely have some things to teach us. And by the way, people on Facebook are excited that you're here to represent the 757 today. So we're happy to have you on. All right, so let's talk about it, because it is, I mean, let's be very transparent, Charles. It's a tough market. It's a challenging market for buyers right now. You just heard, you were on and you heard Marcy talking about, she had a listing, 155 different sets of people wanted to buy that listing, and she only has one to sell. So it seems like to me that setting an expectation with buyers up front and early is super important. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. I always say, bringing the dignity back to the profession as realtors, right? And real estate professionals. And more often than not, James, I see more agents not understanding the true value that we have to the lives of people in our profession. I always tell my team that we're right there with doctors, because one of the things that are true is people are going to always need some measure of health, right? A healthcare professional, but they're going to always need a place to lay their head. And with that being said, that's where we come in at. And one of the things that we've done by design with our team is really carry that mantra of really being the professional amongst professionals and deeming ourselves as a profession that needs to garner respect, and we need to carry out a mantle in such a way that you can't go see the doctor right now without first doing what, James? They're going to say they want a consultation.
They got to meet with you. They got to meet and get some vitals and figure out what's going on before we go do anything else.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that now more than ever is more necessary when dealing with buyers. You have to bring them in, go through the consultation, discover, understand their needs. So then you can decide what's the best way to service their needs. And that's where we've doubled down in the last 2 years when it comes to buyers.
Charles, what if somebody says, I just saw this house came on the market. I need to go see it. Like, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and come meet me. In fact, I'm standing in the driveway. Charles, you got to come show me this house. It sounds like to me you're not doing a lot of that.
No, we're not doing a lot of that. And the reason is because there's not too many things that we can control, but the one thing that we have total autonomy of is the client experience with our name attached to it. And we pride ourselves on the client experience. So with that being said, we have to be true to our systems and our policies. If you don't have a pre-approval, we don't take you out. And there's no such thing as us just running and showing a one door, right? We're not in it for the one door. There's an old adage, James, I'm sure you heard it, where buyers is liars, right? So what we try to do is put ourselves in the best situation to win, and just running and showing one-offs is not the highest and best use of our time. We're in it to help the buyer, but also to foster a relationship, as she said in the previous segment, to ask for the referrals and to build on a relationship that will feed us, and like in kind, we can service it. So the one doors, no, that's not a long-term sustainable business.
Right. So see, you're running a business though. This isn't a job. No. You have a business, you have a career. I know your family's involved, so you've got a legacy that you're looking at as well. And so that's really important. All right. So then I want to chunk down your buyer process. So it sounds like you might get a call, or you guys run into somebody somewhere, you're doing an open house and somebody comes in, but you have all your different sources to find potential buyers. So let's say I reach out to you and say, hey, Charles, I'm interested. We're ready to buy in this market. What's the first step? What's the first thing we're going to do?
What I always try to do is, James, hey, how did you hear about me? Right? I want to qualify the lead. So that's the first thing. Hey, how did you hear about me? Oh, I heard about you from Susan. Okay, great. She was a great client of mine. I'm definitely going to reach out to her and thank her because she understands how we operate. And we're solely by referral. With that being said, James, I like to do two things as step one. Have you already been pre-approved?
I have not. No, we haven't done that yet.
Okay, that's not a problem at all. We can take you from start to finish. You do have a right to choose. However, we've put this thing together where the hardest thing you're going to have to do, James, is find a property. So with that being said, at the conclusion of this call, I'm going to do two things. You're going to get two messages from me. The first one will be a message just so I can create your client profile. The second one will also be our lender information. I encourage you to give a call. Now, the great thing about our lender, James, they have a level of versatility. If you're one that like to come in and have a consultation and meet with the office, they can certainly do that. But if you're rocket fuel like myself and you want to do it online, then you can do that too. So I'm going to send that to you. Now, I want you to understand, James, my loyalty and my allegiance is with you. Me and the lender are not paired together, more so to the point where it supersedes what I'm willing to do for your best interest. Those are the two messages you're going to get. Now, James, For all intents and purposes, if you do not get that text message in the next 5 minutes, something happened to me, tell my mom that I love her, okay?
Okay. All right.
One
I love
last
that.
question
Now,
about
hold
what
on
you
real
do,
quick.
James.
Hold on real quick, because I love this. But first of all, you're capturing them to your database. This is a referral
Absolutely.
from somebody. So you're sending them the client profile to get them in the database. That's step one. Step two, the lender. If you go into the Shift book, page 173 of Shift, Gary says part of urgency is getting kind of understanding three things. He says, when you first meet a potential buyer, there are three fundamental things you want to understand. The first one is their ability. And that's what you're finding out, right? Hey, have you been pre-approved? Are you paying cash? No, I have not been pre-approved. All right. Well, let's get you there. We need to find out your ability first. That's number one. Number two, he says, is your readiness. And I imagine we're going to get there, Charles. You're going to do some sort of consultation to find out what's the motivation around why they're looking to buy right now, and are they ready to do so? That's the second thing. So the first thing, are they able? The second thing, are they ready? And then the last one is, are they willing? So based on what it takes in today's market, are you willing to transact? So you've done the first one. You said, and you do it on the call. Have you gotten pre-approved? If the answer is no, I'm going to connect you with my person. You don't have to use them, but you got choices, and here are your options. You can go sit down and go through a long process, or you can just do it online. The choice is yours. So you're going to send me that message, and then what's going to happen?
And I always end the call with, like, just so I know, are we in a lease? Because now what I'm doing is future pacing business, or I can kind of somewhat uncover their sense of urgency, right? So then it would allow me to react. Normally what happens is when we hang up that call, if I get a text message immediately, I know they're ready to rock and roll.
All
I
right.
then forward that message to my admin team, and my admin team begins to follow our process. From there, they'll call the lender. The very next day, I follow with my lender and say, hey, here's the name, address, and phone number. Make sure you proactively call them if they haven't called you. Because times are kind of tough, we want to make sure nothing gets lost. And it also shows our level of punctuality as a professional, that even if you forget, we're your champion, we're your coach. We're going to follow up with you on what you said you wanted to do, right?
I love it.
So initially, I'll show you, we have a checklist of everything we do with our buyers from start to finish. The reason why that's important, James, is I like to make sure that everybody is treated the exact same way, and it's easy for us to uncover any flaws in our system, right? Early on, James, I don't want to underscore this, is we had to realize as an agency what type of agents we were going to be. And we decided that we were going to be relational versus transactional. So as soon as you contact with us, a welcome note's going out. We're sending you a buyer guide that's a PDF directly to your email. My admin team is calling you, welcoming you on, right? And setting up your wish list. That wish list is starting because we're trying to get some properties in front of you even before the consultation, just to kind of get you excited, kind of get you moving, and also to kind of have some level of a commitment, right? Before you go to anyone else, because you gotta be careful. When they get that pre-approval, that's like the green light. There's
Right.
no guarantee that they're going to relatively be loyal to you, right? So we try to do that. Also,
Here's what I love, Charles. I'm sorry to interrupt, pardon me, but I
No,
what
go
I
ahead.
love is how particular you are in following your process, even in this kind of market that
Absolutely.
seems like a run, don't walk market for buyers. And yet you are not deviating from this process. You've got a checklist. Everybody's going through the same thing. And my guess would be, if they aren't willing to go through that process, that's totally okay. You helped 102 buyers. You're going to have a great business, and some other agent can deal with it. This is the process. And if you want to work with us, this is what we're going to do. Is that right?
That's right. I can't go to Chick-fil-A right now and say, hey, no longer put any pickles on your sandwich, right, James? So with that being said, no buyer can afford the opportunity to come into our organization and tell us how it's going to run. Again, we protect the client experience, and we got to assure, because the type of business that we want, the model that we have, we got to stay true to that. Absolutely.
Okay, so can we jump into your consultation? So now I'm coming to the consultation because I feel like setting the stage for this market in the consultation is also really important, because they're going to get out there and be competing, and they're going to see a list price. And you heard Marcy, she had 155 offers and still one of them was below list price, right? So they got to understand the rules of the game. Tell us about your consultation, because I think there's some key pieces. My guess is you do a consultation 100% of the time.
100%. It doesn't get missed. If they can't make it and they cancel, we reschedule. But we also call the day of to confirm. I want everybody to understand we have in our team people that are in charge with certain parts. And what that does is break up the mundane part of the buyer experience. So I have an admin just strictly for onboarding process as a part of her role. Then once they go into contract, we have somebody who does strictly the under contract portion of the transaction. We have a director of operation who does a spot check. And then I, as a team leader, if it's not one of mine, it's the buyer's agent, I check in as well. That gives them a bunch of different voices so they can't say they're not communicated with, right? So when it comes to the buyer consultation, she onboards it, somebody else calls and makes sure they're coming that day. Once they come in, the first thing we ask them, do you want any water or anything, right? At that moment, we set the tone for a relaxed environment. It is not, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you. It is a very casual conversation to uncover what their needs is. And we finessed a way to, in that, tell them how we operate. Okay, so we sit down with the buyer consultation. It's, hey, what are your family size? What is the dynamic? How long do we plan on living in this property? Right? There's a couple of things. I'll say there's 3 pillars that I digest, James. Number 1, the money aspect. Number 2, the timeline. Number 3, the expectations. Those are the 3 things that a bunch of other questions come from. But if I can leave that conversation hitting those 3 bullets, then I feel that we've nailed the landing of the onboarding process and we're ready to rock and roll and go out and take it and show them properties.
Well, what you're doing is, and Gary talks about this in the book, he says you have to make your buyer, this is page 176 for those of you who want to write down the page numbers to reference later, but 176 of Shift. He says, make your buyer pre-qualification and consultation time count. If you don't have a firm grasp of their personal reasons for moving, you've missed out on one of the most powerful resources for reducing reluctance and reinforcing urgency. So we have to have urgency in this market, and there is reluctance in this market simply because of the prices people are paying. You've got to be able to know what their motivations are so you can circle back to that, right?
Absolutely. James, in every consultation, believe it or not, more so than years past, my best friends for my consultations is this: a Sharpie and a white piece of paper. I am literally writing down things as we go along, but I'm also showing them offer 1 and offer 2. What I'm trying to do is get into the psyche of, hey, we want to put together formidable offers that are going to win. So I want to put you in the mindset of a seller. If you have offer 1 and offer 2 that's asking for closing costs or not asking for closing costs, I also tell them what, if it's a VA loan, an FHA loan, the down payment. I also tell them, hey, this is how much
money.
In
your market, you'd have a ton of VA loans, I imagine, which
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we really use the paper, and believe it or not, chicken scratch, but they want to take it with them. It is something tangible. It makes it more personable. It shows them that I'm engaged in their progression and committed to their success. So all of the PDF and all that stuff is sent initially so that when they're with me in that FaceTime moment, they have our undivided attention. We captivate their trust, and we make good on them saying, hey, this is the reason why I chose you.
It sounds like this is an in-person consultation. You maybe during early parts of the pandemic, you were doing this on Zoom, but are most of them in person?
Most of them are in person now when it comes to buyers. I prefer the buyer consultation to be more so in person because there's a lot
we're getting relational. We're taking notes. Okay. How are you explaining the challenges in this market right now so that your buyers are prepared to win?
I always start the conversation off, James, and say, this is the most I'll ever talk. I'm going to write a lot of things down. I'm going to tell you how this market is. I like to be brutally honest with you about this market. And together today, we'll be able to assess whether you're able to move forward, or I'll set the stage and say, hey, we may lose a couple offers until we find that right property that allows us the freedom to get some closing costs, if any, or we talk about the price guarantee. We talk about the appraisal guarantee, an escalation clause, terms that you normally won't hear in the real estate market. We spend more time talking about those things because those things, James, in all transparency, it's not something you can just send to somebody in a PDF that doesn't need a bit of context and examples behind it, right? We also talk about the home inspection process, whether you're going to do it or not do it, whether you're going to do it for informational purposes only, right? So you got to kind of put more meat and context behind those things versus just saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. And there's something gravitating about being able to look at somebody face to face, belly to belly, and they can see trust and also see there's two pillars, competence and confidence. And they have to have that in us when they leave. And that's the message in our buyer consultations that we're trying to convey.
Walk me through how you're talking about the fact that they will most likely be competing with other offers and will pay more than the list price. How are we explaining that to buyers, and especially say a first-time one?
I understand where you are. This market is tough. I'm totally confident in my team and our ability to get it done. With that being said, I want you to know, James, I love selling houses, but my favorite part of the role is the education. So I'm going to educate you on what it's going to take to win offers. You have to be transparent and honest with me on whether you can do that. Because if not, we're going to have to pivot and shift a little bit, but we'll still be resolute to get you to where you want to be. With that being said, do you have a form of 401k or any measure of reserves?
All right, so now you're going in to find out where else can they get money if they need to. And if not, then we have to start at a lower price than maybe they originally planned.
Exactly. And that's the reason why. And I explained to them, here's the reason why I didn't take you to go look at homes. I want you to be comfortable with the payment. I also need to know whether we can go downward. If I take them, James, and go to show them a $300,000 house, but once we uncover their financial needs, and it's more like a $215,000, $230,000 house, I've shot myself in the foot, because between $215,000 and $300,000, that's a totally different house. That's a dead end with that buyer. So
you're done. They'll never buy.
They'll never buy. And that's why having that consultation, speaking to money very directly, while it may take them back, they will appreciate you doing that up front, because what you're doing, and really, James, is you're setting the expectations for the experience for us to get from start to finish, and that I'm going to give you brutal honesty and transparency so you then can be informed. And what happened, and what I see most agents do, is they interject their own personal opinions versus being a deliverer of the facts, so a person can make an informed decision for what's best for them and their family, and being able to calibrate forward or backwards as a professional on what their needs are. Because these people came to us and said they wanted to buy. They don't know how our industry works, and it's incumbent upon us to educate them to how it works and put them in the best situation to win.
Charles, you're asking a lot of questions when you're sitting down with them, is what I'm hearing. And then you're walking them through steps and processes. By the way, I want to buy from you, just so you know. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is the most trustworthy real estate agent who has ever walked the planet. And people are saying that in the chat. They all want to buy from you too. My in-laws are in Chesapeake, so I don't know if there's ever a time they got to sell or buy. I'm telling them to call Charles. All right, it's gonna get LaKayla mad at me. LaKayla's mad at me now, so you'll have to pay her a referral, but we'll figure it out.
I'm about to say that referral coming. Absolutely.
That's right. Okay, so here's the final question I want to ask you, and I so appreciate you being so generous with your time and walking us through your strategy. How in the world would an agent work with a buyer in today's market without doing a buyer consultation first? How is it even possible?
You always have the outliers, James. So I'm not going to say it's not possible, but if I've learned anything from Gary Keller and reading the books, it's about sustainability and building a business. So while that may work, right, temporarily, it's not sustainable. And everything that we're taught at Keller Williams is to build a business that is sustainable and profitable. So unless you have systems and procedures around how you interact with buyers, it's not sustainable. And if you do, and if you are so fortunate to be successful at it, you're not going to live the life by design, because you're going to be at every beck and call with the buyers because you didn't tell them how you operate and set the proper expectation up front. I'll tell you, James, I'd rather spend an hour up front and have clear expectations of how I work and what their expectations are, so we can get a buyer through the transaction very, very quickly, versus pulling my hair out. As you can see, I don't have much every step of the way because I cheated that process. Listen, there's no elevator success. Sometimes you got to take the steps, James.
Oh my gosh. By the way, Angela Tucker is mad at me too now in Chesapeake that I'm not going to use her. Charles will have to just pay all the people. Charles, and my guess would be then, man, if somebody sits down with your team and walks through this consultation, and you've figured out, you've walked through all the pillars, you've found out what their needs are, you've explained what it's going to take in this market, they're going to have no problem at all signing some sort of agreement to work with you, that they're going to go give me that pen and let me sign and let me work with you. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And remember, when you got two people in a car, James, they can afford to go crazy because the market is crazy. You can't. Somebody has to be able to still drive and be level-headed and steer the ship the right way, right? And that's what we pride ourselves to do. Last thing I'll say, James, and I'm out of here, is remember when working with a buyer, regardless of where the market is, it's still their first time. And we have to be true and genuine to respect the fact that it's their first time. So if it means that we have to put a little bit more education on the front end to garner that customer experience, that's why we signed up to be the professionals that we are.
Charles, you're the best. Thank you. And much success to you and your team. And thanks for all you do in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. It was an honor to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, James. I appreciate you. God bless.
You got it. Oh my gosh. Now, guys, I mean, here's the deal. He laid it out for you exactly how to follow the process and work with buyers in today's market. And you know, you have to be willing to let some sales go. And yet here's what I heard. You're going to do the work either way. You're going to do it on the front end at one time and walk them through it, or you're going to have to do bits and pieces of it as you go. And one sounds a lot harder than the other. Okay, so here's what we've done today. We have laid out for you the importance and the value of lead generation. We talked about that. Then we went in to our sellers piece and we said, all right, here's strategies about working with sellers in today's market. And then Charles just gave you here's strategies to work with buyers. Now what happens is they get under contract and we actually want those deals to close. And we're hearing anywhere around 20% of deals are falling apart on today's market. So we're going to spend the next half hour talking about how to bulletproof the transaction. And you want to talk about elite level talent that we've got. We've got Jeremy from Keller Mortgage is on. And so guys, you can all flip your cameras on all the stuff. We can get fancy now. So we got Jeremy from Keller Mortgage is going to be with us. And then we've got one of my favorite teams in all of Tampa Bay, which just means I made more people mad, but that's okay. We've got Tony Baroni from the Tampa Bay area of Florida, just not too far from me. Is it raining over by you, Tony? Because it's raining here in Pinellas County. And so we've got Tony Baroni and members of Tony's team, Kate and Laurie. So I'm real excited. Jeremy, I want to start with you. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do for Keller Mortgage.
Hi, first off, thank you very much for having me. My name is Jeremy Ellis. I am the Director of Agent Relations with Keller Mortgage. I've actually been in the business as a lender for the last 22 years. Recently adopted this role, basically thinking of myself as the bridge between our loan officers and the agents, trying to help them create those relationships due to the remote nature of what you'll find in having loan officers all around the United States. We have to make sure that our agents feel comfortable with our people, and that's kind of my job.
Well, we're excited about it, and I'm so thankful that you'll be here because the reason I wanted to have you on in this bulletproofing piece, and we'll do you first, and then I know you're a busy guy, and so we'll let you kick it, and then we'll spend the time with Tony's team. The reason I wanted to have you on, Jeremy, is because there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of stuff going down. Rates are up, rates are down. This happens, that happens. The federal government wants to kind of raise the rate, but then Russia and Ukraine's had an impact on the rate, and all these different things are going on, and yet they're still historically low. Can you kind of give us an overview of what's going on mortgage-wise? Because that's important when it comes to bulletproofing a transaction.
I would tell you probably the biggest thing that we're trying to advise our clients when it comes to the market is that we have to be prepared for the change that may come up. With regard to the interest rates, especially having gone through COVID, we had spikes and then we had drops. And those spikes and drops could happen within days, or sometimes on the same day. There were days during COVID where we had up to 10 different reprices in a day. So I could be talking to a client, quote them an interest rate. They say, let's go, let's lock it in. I literally click on the button to lock it in and the rate had already changed. So we try to educate our clients on what's happening in the market to give them kind of that, I don't want to say comfort level because it is a bit anxious of a situation, but try to give them at least the data that lets them make an informed decision, or give them that sense of urgency of, hey, since we don't know what's happening, here's the present rate. Here's what your payment looks like now. If that's comfortable, let's get you moving. Let's find the home that makes sense for you, because we can't lock in that rate until you found that property. So we're subject to the market movement until then.
All right, so things are moving very, very quickly, and there's a lot of education to be done. What are some things agents need to be thinking about right now as people do kind of deal with the uncertainty in that mortgage market?
Biggest thing that I can say that an agent can do to help their client, especially in the mortgage process, is prepare them for the documentation side of things. We ask for documentation in this process that is not the norm that they have access to. People can find a pay stub relatively easy, but when it comes to schedules of their tax returns and things of that nature, them being prepared for that documentation kind of request is huge. The other thing I would tell the agents too is during the process, especially at the pre-approval process, that is the time when we should be doing the vast amount of gathering of documentation so that prior to them going into the actual process of submitting a bid, they can all have peace of mind in the fact that this deal is going to close, right? The last thing that we want to do is have those last minute situations, and they happen, right? Where we get a phone call from an agent that says, I got a client, they need to get pre-approved, and I need a pre-approval letter today, right? There's a lot of risk in that. We're seeing, financials that the client is telling us they think they make, but they often think they make more than what we actually can show. Yeah. So it's preparing them at the beginning, build the foundation first, and then put the house on top of it, right? And we're the foundation. Give us the data that we need to do that, and then we'll take care of the client and get them to the finish line.
Well, and Charles, I don't know if you were on when Charles talked about it. He said he's pulling, when they call and say, we're thinking about buying, he's going, okay, here you go. Are you getting the loan? Yes. Here's the process. Go do this immediately. And then he says he's following up with that loan officer the next morning to make sure that person's called. And if they haven't, he's having the LO reach out. What are some of the biggest concerns that your borrowers have right now?
Interest rate. Interest rate is the biggest thing that we hear about.
Isn't that interesting though, Jeremy? I got to ask, because I feel like they're lacking perspective, because when I bought my first house was 2005. I had a 3-year ARM. The interest rate was 9.25%, and I was over the moon that I could get a house. And then I got a letter from my loan servicer, and I won't tell you who it was because that'll tell you what kind of loan I had. But I got a letter from my loan servicer that basically said, we're nervous you're not going to pay. I was paying. We're nervous you're not going to pay. Sign here, and we're going to move you to a 30-year fixed at 6%. And I did a round-off back handspring in my house with all the money I was going to have to save and all the paperwork. Just remember, they went through, the Obama administration went through, made it easier to change the loan rates and stuff back then. And I was happy as a clam at 6%. Jeremy, if you called tomorrow and said, FYI, rates are going to be 6%, that would have a massive impact on the market right now. Why are we so concerned about rates? Help me understand this.
It limits what the client can actually qualify for when it comes to the home, right? That plain and simple, it's going to control the payment. And the biggest thing that our clients are seeing beyond the interest rate is Jeremy, I can sell right now. I'd love to sell. Problem is, when I go to buy this next house, how much am I paying for that house? To get something, ultimately, most people are wanting to kind of upgrade a bit, right? My family's growing. I need to sell, need to upgrade, and I need to be able to afford what I want to upgrade to. And that's where people are facing like this stress level of, hey, if this market keeps jumping in terms of interest rates, I keep losing opportunity at size of home or square footage of home, and that has them very anxious. We
have an affordability issue that comes into play, Jeremy, is what you're saying, and the low rate is helping them maybe purchase something that at a higher rate, obviously they're just not going to be able to get it, and home values are going up. They're saying like 12% they're going to go up this year. So you see this rapid appreciation. So that's why rate's important.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So now my guess is that I'm going to be careful. We're not here to sell you anything, but the cool part about it is that Keller Mortgage does have some tools that you can't find elsewhere that are probably helping and are an advantage to buyers in this market. Can you share a little bit of that?
Absolutely. Appreciate you asking. So Keller Mortgage, the benefit that we're going to provide to the clients from go is the fact that we're going to waive the lender fees associated with the transaction. So underwriting fees, common names that you'll see of fees that the clients will see on their fee sheets is underwriting fee, processing fee, application fee, discount points, loan origination charges, all of those buzzwords that kind of have people, kind of clench up a bit and like, hey, they're charging me too much. Keller Mortgage takes the pressure off of them immediately and waives those fees. In addition to that, if the loan amount's $150,000 or higher, not only do we waive those fees, we also give them another $1,000 in lender credit on top of that. So a lot of clients, especially in today's market, when they're trying to qualify for something a bit more, they'll use that money to help buy a lower interest rate than maybe what the market is calling for. In addition to that, Keller Mortgage does something, and I've been in the business, like I said, for 22 years. I've never worked for a company that does this. We cover the cost of the appraisal up front. Now, initially, you may think of that and be like, well, that's a benefit. Well, it's a huge benefit in the event that your client is paying for an inspection fee and then paying for an appraisal fee, and then find something happens with that home that they withdraw from contract, and now they don't move forward. And now they have the fee for the inspection, they have the fee for the appraisal that's lost monies to them. In the situation with Keller Mortgage, we're going to absorb the cost of that appraisal for them and continue to do that until they find the property that makes sense. And only then at closing will they incur the cost of that appraisal.
Oh, I love that. So if agents, and I know we got Kate on, Kate, I think was the top referrer to Keller Mortgage in all of Keller Williams last year. She sent a lot of business your way. So
Thank you,
she's
Kate.
a big, yeah, she loves it. And we'll talk a little bit about it in a minute. But if somebody, wants to get their client connected or they have questions, what's a resource they should go to?
I would tell you myself immediately is a resource for them, is getting them connected to the right loan officer. Because I'll tell you this is a relationship business, right? And my goal is, as the director of agent relations, get a feel for my agent, how they conduct their business, what kind of business are they doing? Are they doing first-time home buyers predominantly? Are they actually in the listing side of things? And then once I have a feel for how they're doing things, the level of involvement that they have in the transaction, I can align them with the applicable loan officer that makes sense to them. So I will totally provide my contact information and make sure that everybody gets taken care of. If you wanted the quick way to do it, you could certainly go to kellermortgage.com. And right from there, you can sign in under the KW agent login in the upper right-hand corner. And that's going to take you to your personalized KW agent portal. It's going to give you the opportunity to choose a loan officer, and you can go in there. It's under My LO. It's right in the center. When you click on that, it's going to give you every loan officer that's licensed in your state with their contact information. You add it, and you can see their contact information. Call them and interview them yourself. Beyond that, within that site is once they start sending clients over, and those clients go through the pre-approval process with us. One of the biggest things agents are always asking for is, Jeremy, I got a client pre-approved up to $600,000, but we need to submit a bid at $550,000. I don't want to show the $600,000 letter. I need a letter now because I need to submit this bid before everybody else does. We give that pre-approval letter to the agent within that portal as a dialable pre-approval letter that they just go into it, adjust the price down to what they need it to be, and can send the letter right from that website.
That's great. I love that. Well, you're getting love in the chat. Karen said her son just closed with Keller Mortgage, and the local lender couldn't get within $2,500. My mom, by the way, just bought recently in Palm Harbor, used you guys and absolutely loved it. So I appreciate being on. Is there anything, Jeremy, before we let you go, anything we didn't cover or talk about that you think is vital for agents to hear as they deal with this market right now?
Well, I would tell you this. As far as the market goes, I think we kind of cover that in the sense of preparing the client for the transaction. But beyond that, I would tell you that from a Keller Mortgage perspective, we went over kind of the highlights of what Keller Mortgage has for our agents. There are some things coming down the pike for our agents that are huge. Ways with which we are connecting them from a lead generation source called Rise. So you'll start to hear a lot about that as an option. You're going to start to hear something about called Fast, which is a way with which we are going to try to incent our agents for the deals that close with us. So there's a number of things that are in the Keller Mortgage future that we're doing to further integrate. I would tell you Keller Covered is huge. I obviously don't work for them, but I would tell the agents that's something that we have, that they have access to, that I think a lot of agents don't even realize the benefits that come to them from
that's
that
insurance
product.
For the people that don't know. So
Keller Covered is the homeowners insurance division. So just many things that the agents are going to have access to. And I would tell them, team leads, operating principles, anything like that, give me a phone call. I'm happy to get in front of their teams, present these materials to them, and then try to get them started with the business.
Jeremy, you rock. Thanks for taking time out. I appreciate you so very much. Thanks for
Appreciate
being
you
on.
having me.
You got it. All right. So let's talk now let's go into real life with our agents and talk about what's happening transaction wise. And so I want to introduce Tony Baroni and members of his team. And I'm so excited to have them on. I love this team. They're a great group of people, and I've known many of them for a long time. So it's cool to see what's happened with their careers over time. Tony, we'll start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Tell us a little bit about you and your team, and then we'll hear from Kate and Laurie as well.
Yeah, James, thanks for having us on. You're awesome. The David Letterman of real estate, I always say.
We went to the same school, by the way. We both went to Ball State.
I know.
So yeah.
I know. Well, you're such a great interviewer, and you're just so good at this. So yeah, Tony Baroni, been with KW since 2007. Started a team in 2010. Last year, we helped 354 families. I've got two amazing team members here. Super Kate Conroy And Lori, we need to come up with a nickname for Lori too, I think.
She
She's
needs
like,
one. Yeah, no doubt about it.
She's thinking the same.
Awesome. Tony, thank you. Kate, introduce yourself to everybody.
Hey, James. I am Kate Conroy. I am the lead buyer specialist with the Tony Brownie team. So in terms of bulletproofing the transaction, so closed 130 last year for 47.
Now I want you to time out real quick. That's you closed
Yeah.
130 buyer sides last year.
Yes.
And you almost have like this little team within the team to be able to pull that off. You've got
Yes.
some help, but you definitely understand what it means to bulletproof a transaction for a buyer.
Yes. Yep. So 130 and 47 million. So that was fun. We already have 46 under contract year to date as well. So keeping up that momentum.
Oh my goodness. By the way, when you do 47 million as a buyer agent, you're not worried about how much the gas costs.
Yeah.
Lori.
You will not see me posting that. No.
No, you will not. Lori, your job is to make sure, well, introduce yourself, because your job is to make sure these deals close.
Yes. Hey, James. Hey, everybody. My name is Laurie McGee, and I'm the buyer transaction manager for the team. So I work with Kate. As I like to say, Kate and I are hooked at the hip, but I work alongside all of the buyer agents on our team. So
That's great.
definitely bulletproofing every day.
No doubt, because, well, Lori,
Yeah.
you tell me, I mean, we've heard, and the number may not be the same for you, but as I've talked with agents over the last couple of years, there was one point I was hearing 20% of contracts are coming in and then falling apart for whatever reason. And I imagine you guys have some that fall apart. What would be some of the common reasons that a transaction might fall apart?
Honestly, a lot of it could be anything from the lender side to inspections. A lot of buyers do get into a little bit of the fear factor when you get into the inspection period and the repairs and things of that nature. But I would say, and Kate can attest to this or add to, but I would say a lot of it does wrap around the inspection repairs, and then of course the lending, because near the end, I mean, Kate and I have seen it. Everything's going smooth and this and that, but then some things can, go a little sideways at the end when it in terms of the mortgage side.
All right. So then, Kate, let's talk about it. Now, we had Jeremy on from Keller Mortgage who talked a little bit about that. And I sent several referrals to them last year. You had several clients that use Keller Mortgage. So the lender is a big piece. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
How are you coaching your clients around that loan process to make sure that all that stuff stays together?
Yeah, so the lender relationship is everything. So I've closed 81 deals with Keller Mortgage. And that, in my opinion, is just having the control and knowing the process. The lender knows the expectations they can walk through with the client. That really does make a big impact, because I know that they are going to close. Unless it's the buyer quit their job, bought a boat, did something far out of our control. That does really make the transaction solid. Now, there are times where even I can't, control necessarily who they're using for a lender. And that's usually it's those unforeseen things that come up. And then all of a sudden you have a buyer who's using their bank or whoever their trusted lender is. And if something's lost in that transaction, it's unfortunate for the buyer as well, because they put the money into inspections, appraisals, and all the costs. So we really do everything we can to make sure that they're working with a solid lender that has their best interest.
All right. Now, Lori said, and by the way, Brad Korn is suggesting Lock It Down Lori for her name, all right? Because she is the transaction coordinator.
That's a good one, actually.
So
Lock
Brad
it down,
Korn says,
Lori.
Lock It
Yeah,
Down
I like
Lori. Yeah, is
That's
going to be her
funny.
new name. So
That's
Lock
it.
It
Brad
Down
Korn.
Lori. Lock It Down Lori says that Kate, the other issue is inspections. And we had Jenny Wallach on earlier who said, hey, one of her strategies is she's going out and doing the pre-inspection when she takes a listing to try to maybe even get the buyer to just not even have one. And yet you as a buyer agent, you're going to recommend to your buyers they have an inspection, and yet that's where some issues can arise.
Yeah.
What's your advice around that? Because Gary says in Shift that the inspection is like the number 2 spot that we'll see deals fall apart.
Absolutely. So in my opinion, when it comes to the inspection, it's one, who are you working with in terms of the other agent and their experience, but also two, it's thinking outside the box. I'm bringing solutions. I will literally do whatever it takes to keep the deal together. because if my client wants that home, there's always a workaround. So for example, if the seller doesn't have the money to pay for a new roof prior to closing, what does that look like? Do you have a trusted vendor? Do you have a roofer that can get out there that can replace the roof? It's paid from proceeds at closing. Thinking of little options to make sure that the whole deal is smooth, both for the buyer, securing home insurance, getting a new roof, the seller doesn't have an out-of-pocket expense. I mean, I can't tell you how many agents I'll work with, and they're not Keller Williams, of course, but if they say, hey, this house needs a new roof, we're not going to be able to close this, and we're just going to move on, look for a cash buyer, whatever it may be, there's other solutions, and we can't just give up. You have to definitely bulletproof it with terms of thinking outside the box.
It sounds like a focus on the plan, not the problem type of thing, like we learned in Bold, is that what's the path forward instead of getting all caught up in all the mess. And what happens in a market like this is that sometimes we can lead with emotion, and we often make bad decisions when we're leading with emotion. Kate, how do you keep your people in logic and out of emotion so they make really good decisions?
Yeah, we're the experts. We need to be calm. We need to be collective. We need to know what the end result is. We need to know what their motivation is. I have conversations every single day with buyers, reminding them on what was their intention. Is it moving from another state? Is it finding that pool home? And then the solutions around that is just talking through that, back to motivation, back to solutions, back to being calm. Lori and I talk about this all the time, but we have to be the voice of reason. If our energy reflects the transaction, people have no idea what I have going on in the day-to-day, the calls, personal things even. They don't need to know that. This is all about them and making sure that they have the best possible real estate experience as well.
Kate, I love it. All right, Tony, I want to come to you because I have a feeling that you do a great job as a rainmaker on help coaching your agents and your admin team about how to keep transactions together. And you probably deal with co-op agents from time to time that might get a little wound up about things. What advice, just based on your experience in running one of the most successful real estate organizations in Tampa Bay, what would your advice be to agents out there that look, they're not Kate, who's out showing a bunch of houses and has showing agents and then has lock it down Laurie on her side to help her out. They're just out there trying to do all this on their own. What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I would say that it starts with over communication. Anyone on my team knows I talk about that all the time. I think over communication solves most issues. One of my favorite scripts is, hey, James, just want to let you know I didn't forget about you. As soon as I hear on the appraisal, you'll be the first to know. So didn't want you to think I forgot about you. We haven't got word back yet, but I will contact you immediately once we know that. And then after that, James, we're just really on the home stretch where we're going to be getting updates from the lender weekly. So did you have any questions for me?
That's great. And oftentimes they go, no, we're good, right? They don't have any questions for you.
And then a checkup, a checkup from the neck up. You've got, hey, on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, James, how would you say that we're delivering the promise to you so far?
Yeah. Okay. So let's sidebar real quick because they need to understand what you're talking about. When you begin a process and working with someone, you're making a promise, a commitment to give them a 5-star experience and make sure that it's a wonderful time with them. In return, right, you're going to ask them to leave a 5-star review and send referrals your way. So you're always checking to make sure you're providing that 5-star experience.
Well, and that's the example of over communication. We assume we're doing a great job, but are we asking, right? And a lot of the time it may be confusion with the lender, maybe confusion with various things that have nothing to do with us, but they lump us all together, guys, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. Right.
So we need to be asking those questions to find out if they're confused or if they need anything. And I would say Lori and Kate and all the people that have been on my team now and in the past that are the most successful are the calmest person in the transaction, James, without question. They're like this all the time. They don't get high, they don't get low. They're just even keel.
Well, you can tell based on what we're hearing here. I've never met a buyer agent who's done, 100 and whatever houses that just is where everything's fine. We're just rocking and rolling. And
We got you.
Kate's doing it. And of course that comes from you. That's how you lead. So they follow. Lori, in Shift on page 246, I know you don't have your book. I'm just giving it for reference for people watching. In Shift page 246, Gary gives us the 6 bulletproofing issues. And we've covered a couple. Inspections is number 1. I think I'd said it was number 2. It's number 1. Number 2 is appraisal. Number 3 is loan approval and funding, which we've covered. Number 4 is other contingencies. Number 5 is the co-op agent. And then number 6 is various deadlines. Where are the outside? So you've talked about inspection and you talk about loan approval. What's the next one that's causing the biggest challenge for you guys right now? And how are you overcoming that?
I would say that once you get through, the inspection process, I mean, Kate and I and all of our agents, we're very big about being proactive. So I'm already reaching out to the buyer, letting them know, hey, this is what's coming next, which, as we all know, after the appraisal will come your lender final loan approval, your clear to close, wrapping up all the repair items. Kate's very big on making sure, are these repair items done? Do we have our roofing documents, warranty paperwork? So we go above and beyond to make sure that that buyer has everything they need, leading them into closing. So I would say in terms of the next deadline, it would be obviously pushing the lender behind the scenes, title, making sure that they're all looped in. Are we all tracking for March 1st, whatever that date is. So I think that that's huge. Kate knows that really 2 weeks before the closing date, I'm already pushing it. And as you say, locking it down. So we're looking at that final clear to close, making sure that the agent has the home ready, walkthrough, cleanliness, all of those task items that need to be ready for that buyer.
I heard a key phrase from you. I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't mean to cut you off. Let me just get this point. I heard a key phrase from you that everyone needs to write down. And my guess is you say this all the time. Here's what will happen next. Here's what will happen next. That's like the magical beginning of a sentence, Laurie, when it comes to kind of keeping things moving forward. Because I feel like, and I don't know, this is just a feeling because I'm not out there every day like you guys are. But I mean, we're in the same community. We're in the same area, right? And in Tampa Bay, what's happened to home prices over the last couple of years. And I'm not saying anything that's not true in any other market, really. But 2 years ago, if you rewind 2 years ago, I sat there, my wife and I sat down and said, if we could get $595 for our house, we would sell it tomorrow because we weren't sure what we were going to do, right? I was coaching Bold at the time and all that was ending. And it's like, we sat there and like, if we get $595, man, we're going to take that money. We're going to go rent something for a couple of years and just roll with it and play this out. Well, there's a house that just went on the market. I'm 2320. It's 2319. That's on my address, 2320. Its address is 2319, and it's on the market for 725. Like we have moved way past that number that I thought. So I feel like buyers look at stuff like that and might start to freak out a little bit about what's going on. And yet here's what's going to happen next. And we're on path for this. And remember, this is why you're doing what you're doing and why you decided to do this. Lori, it seems like those conversations are so important right now.
Yeah. Yes. And just keeping them at ease, because like you said earlier, whether you're a first-time home buyer or this is your 20th purchase, it is stressful. And we're very big on keeping it as smooth as possible, delivering the promise. But at the end of the day, it is the biggest purchase you're ever going to make. So yes, keeping the peace for
Tony,
sure.
what do you want to say?
I was just going to say, Lori and Kate do an amazing job up front on deadlines with everything laid out, who the lender is, who the title company is, what the deadline is for every single thing in the contract. And it's addressed day one with the effective date. And that kind of lays the groundwork for everything else. And they do an amazing job at that. And communication between all of the powers that be to get it to closing. And I've never seen anyone better than Kate and Lori at that, and just setting the expectations. And as we know, sometimes the co-op agent may not be around. So we just have to get after it, as Lori would say.
Yeah. And
we get after it and we figure it out for the client, because at the end of the day, that's our job.
All right, you took it right where I wanted to go next, which was the co-op agent. This is one of the challenges we can have in a market like this. And again, I remind, we're in Florida. There are more licensed real estate agents in Florida than anywhere else. When you get pulled over here they ask for your real estate license before your driver's license. It's just the way it works. So I want to read, and then Kate, you're up. I want to read page 257 of Shift, 257 of the Shift book. In every transaction, it's critical that you carefully assess who you are co-oping with, their experience, their communication ability, their knowledge, and yes, even their ethics. Identify their strengths and know where you might have to carry the load and vice versa. You know, Kate, I know you deal with you're going to deal with the co-op agent on the front end as you're preparing an offer, negotiating an offer, and going through that, and then it's going to get passed to Lori. So I want to hear from both of you. And then Tony, you get the complaints when they think you guys have done something wrong. So let's walk through it. Kate, what's it like? You know, how important is that co-op agent, and what are you assessing? Because Gary's telling us we should.
Yeah, so that relationship is everything. So these individuals that we're working with, a lot of these top teams and top agents, we're going to do multiple deals with them. So I love when I see it's someone that I know, because I'm instantly reaching out saying, hey, I have a buyer. They're very qualified. They know we're using Keller Mortgage. They know that we have Lori on the back end. They know the expectations from our team, and that we will get them to closing. And two, I just like to have fun. I'll joke around with them. Hey, this is going to be another fun transaction. I look forward to working with you. You know, whatever it's going to take on the front end, just to set those expectations that we're back, and that, you know, we fulfill on that end as well. And if it's someone that we don't necessarily know, it's picking up the phone, having that conversation, walking through why we're using who we're using on the lending side, what that looks like for them, the benefits of communication, all that good stuff as well.
Are you, including anything with an offer? Are you doing something extra to help your stuff stand out so that you can get into an even better relationship with this co-op agent?
Absolutely. So I detail out all the points within the contract that stand out. So anything in terms of the offer that's really strong, I will copy in the lender. So I'll say, again, our lender's here to talk up the buyer. They're excited to get on the phone with you and let you know that they're also very solid, that this is going to be a smooth transaction. And then I always include just a little information on the buyer as well. In my mind, the contract's a piece of paper. And so what's the rapport behind that? What's the story? What's the meaning behind this home? And that's my why, is why I'm closing it. And that's why I write it from my perspective. So it's about the story that I'm telling on why I'll make sure it closes, because that family matters as well as that house, making sure it's a smooth transaction.
I love it. So you're outlining some sort of summary of key points of the offer that they need to know about, and then telling a little bit about why this is so important. Lori, so Kate gets it. She's power negotiator, gets it figured out and gets them under contract. And now it's time to turn it over, right? And your job is to lock it down. How are you staying in rapport with the co-op agent? It's totally true. We've got people here that might sell 1 or 2 or 3 houses a year, and this is a big deal for them, and they're not having closings every day like you guys are. So talk about your relationship and how you get in the flow with the co-op agent, especially when things get a little bit rough.
So from the very beginning, it's all about communication. So like for me, I'm all about saving the buyer money. I want to save them as much as I can. So out the gate, I'm going after things like, is there a survey on file? How about HOA docs? Do we have those we can get in front of the buyer? So small little details that I think make a huge difference. The other part of that is as the agent, of course, I'm always CCing in Kate or any other agent on our team, but communicating on the highs and the lows. So for example, hey, the appraisal's in, great news, appraisal's in. Or, hey, what's going on with the inspection? Do you have that finished? Or so anything good or bad, we always want to be communicating. I would say several times a week, just reaching out. Do you have updates on your end? Our lender has updates about this. So just keeping them in the loop. And of course, CCing in Kate or any of the agents, so that way they are aware of what's going on, with the transaction at all times.
Lori, it seems like you're almost doing an assessment on the skill set of this co-op agent, so you know where you're going to have to maybe pick up and do a little bit more. Is that right?
Yes, and each situation is different. I mean, you've got your seasoned veterans that have been doing it for 25 years. And then like Kate said, you may have, a newer agent. But the neat thing is we hope no matter who it is, we want to help them because there's a seller on the other side of that. And, it affects everyone. So it's about, like she said, and what you've shared, it being about the relationship. This isn't just a transactional, this is relational. So it's very important.
Tony, what are some of the common mistakes that you find co-op agents are making that are causing deals to fall apart? I've seen it happen. I've seen it where there isn't any reason for this deal not to happen, but an agent maybe got a little bit emotional or said something kind of goofy. What are some things that you've noticed that maybe people watching this have made the same mistake that they could avoid?
Well, you can almost tell how they're acting. They're acting towards you and they're acting towards their client. So if they're very emotional and it's emotionally charged conversation all the time, that's not good typically for their clients or our clients because it's causing issues. So I'd say, again, going back to be the calmest person in the transaction, be solution oriented rather than, pointing fingers and causing issues, and try to just keep calm, be professional, right? And try to come up with solutions. The best solution is not for the buyer to back out. It really is not, because they have to start over. We all know this market. So try to keep the deal together is what Kate said. And I love that. I mean, I really believe that that's probably the best solution. And then we didn't talk about this, but I'll mention this, just bulletproofing the transaction starts and ends with buyer's remorse. Everyone's going to get it. It's a matter of time. So anyone you put under contract, make sure you're talking through that with people. And just, it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter if it's going to happen, it's when, right? So yeah. You're going to get buyer's remorse, James, right?
Yeah.
And when you do, call me, we'll talk through it, but you will get buyer's remorse, guaranteed. And we're going to keep you on the fence. You made a great decision, James. This house is awesome for you. We really need to do that a lot in this market, I think, and connect them back to the why they did it.
Yeah, 100%. It is a true story. Is when my first wife and I got divorced, I helped her buy her house. Right, we had a fine relationship. It was not weird, I promise. It was fine, but I helped her through that process, and I know her, right? I mean, we were together 7 years. So I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and you're actually going to be mad. You're going to be mad at me because you bought this house, and it's going to freak you out. And I just need you to know it's called buyer's remorse, and everybody has it, just like you said. And so when you wake up tomorrow morning feeling that, just know it's okay. And it was so funny. The next morning, my phone rang and it was her. And I went, okay, here we go. And I pick it up. And she goes, hey, do you remember that buyer's remorse thing you told me about? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I have it. I said, well, then it's a good thing we talked about it up front. And she goes, okay, thanks. That's all I needed. That was it. And that was in a normal market, right? A normal market. In a market like this, especially, they got people in their ear and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that can definitely shine in. Okay, couple minutes left, and then Gary will be here in just a minute. I just want to ask Tony, and anybody can chime in. We didn't talk about sellers. I mean, now you're saying, hey, it's best for the buyer to stay in the deal. But if a buyer is thinking about getting out, what if the seller says, let them out? That's fine. We'll go through this again. How are we handling that? Who wants to take that?
I will, just because I work with some sellers. But yeah, guys, be careful. Like, if you're asking for 55 things to be repaired, there's very likely that there's a backup offer higher than yours, and someone's waiting in the wings for that to happen. So, don't push too hard where it's unreasonable, right? There's reasonable and unreasonable. You're buying a house for $600,000 and it needs new AC unit, and it wouldn't have been $600,000 if you knew that. Then you may want to be negotiable on that and say, yeah, I understand you don't want to inherit a house that needs a new AC within the next couple months. We get that. So yeah, we'll lower the price by $5,000. But we see that all the time. We have agents, the buyer side's basically threatening us that they're going to back out if not. And we're sitting here like, I mean, we got like 16 backup offers, guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
see you later.
We have some that are way over the price. So please don't do that, because the seller's going to exercise that option real quick.
Yeah. Terry Story, who's a great agent, she's an MREA, making $1 million a year selling real estate, but she asked this question, and so I'm going to ask you, Tony. She says, what about seller remorse? We talked about buyer remorse, but is seller remorse coming up, and how are you handling that?
yeah, we spend a lot of time up front to make sure they are committed to selling their house, right? Because if not, we do get into the situations. Well, once we're under contract, are we able to back out on our end if we can't find what we're looking for? And it's like, that's not going to be a good situation. So we spend a lot of time talking about that up front with the seller. Of course, they just want to not be homeless is what we hear most of the time. They're like, I just don't want to sell my house and then be homeless and have nowhere to go. So at the end of the day, seller's remorse is a real thing in this market. And I haven't really seen that in the past.
Something new. So it's about expectations up front and making sure, Gary teaches us in the shift book under buyer urgency, make sure they're able, ready, and willing, right? They have the ability financially to buy, they're ready based on their motivation, and they're willing to transact in this market. It seems like you'd want to know the same thing for a seller right now. Are they able? In other words, do they have do they know their plan of where they're going to go next based on this market? Are they ready to do so based on their motivation? And then are they actually willing to do it based on what this journey will be? I absolutely love that. All right, Kate, Laurie, final words of anything you want to share on bulletproofing. Kate, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to lock it down, Laurie.
So I would say, are you doing a habit audit? And what I mean by that is that if you have deals that are falling apart, or if you're on a roll and you're crushing it and you see everything, that good momentum, what are your habits? So every single Friday, Lori and I have a meeting, and what we're discussing is literally everything in that transaction. What went well? What did we miss? Do we have a review? Anything in that transaction? And that's our habit audit. So that's how we really bulletproof it, because if we're seeing consistent things go wrong, why not correct it in that moment? And we don't want a week to go by with those same mistakes.
Super smart. So a circle back and just check what's showing up a lot. Where are we the common denominator in some of the challenges that are happening? I love that. Laurie, final thoughts?
I would say a big one is just care for your client. We live in a day and age where people don't want to take the time to pick up a phone. They want to text, right? Or they want to not put a card in the mail. And our team is big on handwritten cards. And I just think it's so wonderful to it's not about what do they say, what you said, but it's how you made them feel. That's what people will remember. And I was just on the phone yesterday with a buyer. He was super stressed about something as simple as homeowners insurance. But after 10 minutes of speaking with him and, getting him to kind of come back down, it's just taking that time to care for people. So that's what I would leave as a nugget for everyone.
Well, let's remember we got to remember there's a lot happening. We're still in a pandemic. There's gas prices are going up. We got uncertainty across the globe. There's a lot of stuff going on. We got to help just keep people in check. Tony, Kate, Laurie, thank you. You were great. We appreciate Tony, your team, and everything you do in Tampa Bay and for KW. Thanks for being here. We appreciate all of you talking about bulletproofing the transaction. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. You got some great ideas and great strategies from all three of them. And it's important that we understand that, a transaction, it can fall apart. We got to do what we got to do to keep it together. All right. So now what do we do, right? We've covered so much today. We've talked about strategies to work with sellers in today's market, strategies to work with buyers, and now bulletproofing. So now it's up to you to actually take this stuff and get into action, or as we always say, go from inspiration to perspiration. So we figured the best way to do that was to bring Gary on to talk with us. So I'm so excited. Gary Keller is joining us today on the Shift Workshop, and what a great way to kind of put a bow on today. So let's see, there we go. So Gary, thank you so much for spending time with us. It's been a powerful workshop for 2 days now. They've heard so many great ideas and so many great strategies. And I want to start with this because I remember a few years ago, I reached out to you. I was going to teach Shift for KWYP. And I figured we have a generation of people in our company that have never lived a market that you and Dave and Jay wrote this book for, right? They wrote this in 2008 in a buyer's market. Gosh, if they got in the business after 2011, they've never experienced one. So I reached out to you and I said, what advice would you give? And you told me the only way to get ahead is to act like the market that's coming, not the market that you're in.
Yeah, that's right.
We're in a crazy hot market. Can you talk a little bit about that right now? Why is that so important?
Well, because the markets always change, right? Essentially, the reason why they call it an economic cycle is because what goes up comes down and what comes down goes up. So My advice is and this is I take this advice, James, and that is every day operate in the market you're in while at the same time recognizing that it's going to shift. That's all. So don't take it for granted because shifts happen suddenly. I remember our friend Dave Jinks, who was an avid golfer, would pull out a golf club, and he would demonstrate that an economic cycle is experienced just like a golf swing. So he would take his golf club and he would rear it back like this, and then he would demonstrate a golf swing. And what happened is that it's slow here and speeds up as it goes. So there's a lot of momentum. You may feel the shift right here, but it's everything. It didn't happen overnight. There were things that were happening, and if you weren't paying attention to it, you would all of a sudden you'd be suddenly shocked by it. So it's just a simple idea that says when you wake up in the morning, be happy in the moment you're in, but be prepared for the future at the same time. That's all, because it's going to happen. It will happen, and it will shock you. It's almost like Goodbye American Pie, the day the music died. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Having been in this business for over 44 years, I can assure you, I've seen enough of these because it comes with regularity. The only weird thing right now is that we're in unprecedented times for a couple of reasons, but one of them is the prolonged recovery.
Yeah, it seems like we've been in this seller's market forever.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you go back and look at the info that Jay and Jason and I and Ruben put up at the vision speech, and you look at it, we dropped off a cliff. And actually, it happened in the last quarter of 2005, really. They didn't report it as an economic recession until 2008, but it actually happened in 2005 and 2006. You could see it. If you were paying attention, you could see it. Mm-hmm. But economic cycles usually occur in like a rhythm of 7 to 9 years. There's just a rhythm to it. You go back and look, and you'll see it. So if that happened in 2008, let's just call it 2008 for the fun of it, then we should have by 2015, 16, no later than 18, we should have been in a real economic cycle, but we didn't. We did just the opposite. It just kept going. COVID hit, and literally everybody thought, okay, this is it, because economic cycles are mainly caused by the government. And the reason is because when things are really good, then they want to literally go ahead and raise interest rates back up because when things are really good, it gets overheated, and they don't like that, right? And then things are bad, they lower rates, they lower the cost of money, they do the economic decisions that they need, dials, if you will, that they turn in order to ratchet the economy up and down. And they never get it right. It's not because they don't know what they're doing. It's because once they start it, they don't know how far it'll go. Right, either direction. So most of the time, the challenges of the economy have been caused by the government. The desire to ramp things up. I remember when it started out, I think, with Clinton, but it was a plan that Cisneros, who was the governor of San Antonio, the mayor of San Antonio, excuse me, had come up with to try to increase the overall percentage of homeowners in America. And man, that was a disaster, because what they started doing was creating, if you could fog a mirror, you got a loan. Next thing you knew, you had people in houses that shouldn't be in it. Anyway,
well,
I don't need to go any further on that. So essentially, you're right. So
we've been in this ramp up now since 2011, and yet I tell you, this book is still completely relevant. It just reads a little bit differently, but excuse me, we have some uncertainty right now. You leave your house today to drive to KWRI. I don't know what the price of gas was as you were driving in through Austin. And I know here in the last week, it's gone up 50 or 60 cents, and it's a hot topic, and it is what it is. And you've got Russia and Ukraine, and you've got inflation, and you've got supply chain, and you guys covered all this at Family Reunion.
And you got COVID.
Yeah, and you've got COVID still is here. You've got all this uncertainty, and yet there's a house in my neighborhood, Gary, that is appreciated. It was sold and closed in December, and it went back on the market today, and it's $50,000 more than they paid for it, and they're going to get it this weekend. I mean, what is going on, and what is to come?
Yeah, well, I covered this in the vision speech. The bottom line is that we had the lost decade of new home construction, and literally I pointed this out every year since it started. Right? There's a number, and when you don't hit it, you're not replenishing the market. And so you just have you have a completely seller's market, and it's not going to go anytime soon because, it would, at the current pace now of building, you would get back to equilibrium in 20 years. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. But that's the truth. So we're going to be a seller's market for a long time. And the only way that that's going to shift is a calamity. Because remember, the way you get out of a seller's market is when buyers collectively go, nah, I think I'm gonna stay where I am.
Is there any thought, and pardon my interruption, I just got to ask you though, is there any thought at all that buyers might think that right now? Understanding that the people are always going to buy and sell, and you always have a chance. But
no, because we covered this, and the rich got richer.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, the cost of money has stayed ridiculously low.
Yeah.
Multiple percentage points below the historic average nationally. So no, money is still historically ridiculously cheap, and incomes are going up. So people have the money in order to do it. So here's the other ridiculous idea though, and that is every year we point out the 4% trend line on pricing.
Yep.
And then we talk about where we are in relation to that 4% annual appreciation or inflated home price. And you're not that far ahead of it.
Right. Well, you showed us last year. It's first of all, we had, or just showed us last month rather. We had below, and then we kind of got there, and then it's just a tick above. It's right. Really we've been catching back up for the last several years.
Yeah, that's right. So that's exactly right. And so it's really odd because you look up and you go, good God, this is overpriced. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the trend line and you go nationally, you go, wow, that's so weird because it feels ridiculously high. And yet the trend line says it's not ridiculously high compared to everything else. So, but here's what we know. What we know is that history says this would be the first time ever in mankind that prices just kept going up and never stopped. So if you're a betting person, it's going to stop. Now, the last time we had this happen, which was the run up to 0506,
right.
We had, I believe, I could be exactly wrong, but I believe we had 4 years above the trend line. In other words, prices
4 years above this 4% annual growth or appreciation.
We did.
So that's a warning sign.
Yep. Well, of course it is. And that is it's outstripping affordability. That's all that means. Remember that a house, a lot of people in real estate, we understand this, but a house is the reason why home prices will always go up. So as realtors, we need to understand this. The reason why they're going to go up is because there'll always be new construction, and new construction is the current replacement cost of a house. And the replacement cost of a house, what's fascinating is it's the greatest storehouse of commodities of any product ever invented, right? You buy any product that you want, right? My phone here. My phone here is a product of a variety of commodities, from rubber right? You name it. It's all here. Glass, it's all here, right? Okay. My house has more commodities in it than and more different types of labor attached to it than any other product. So, right, it's got it all. And so as a result of that, the resale price of a house has usually been governed by the replacement cost. Now,
which is always going to be more. Right.
So
and whether it's
happening?
more expensive, it's harder to get. There's fewer people to do it. We, for a while we couldn't get lumber. I mean, so all of that stuff adds up, and boom, now you have stuff that goes up and goes up.
That's it. That's exactly right. So literally, that's exactly right. So, but at some point, if left out of control, you ultimately end up with prices where you have fatigue, and buyers simply go, "I'm going to take a year off."
Right.
And when they take,
that's what I think would happen. At some point, people are going to go look at, let's use gas because it's the big one right now. They'll look and go, hey, I'm not going to pay that much for gas, so we're going to drive less, or we're going to carpool, or we're going to do this. And maybe something like that changes.
But here's the thing is the real estate pricing is no different than the stock market. So the stock market in any 9 to 10 year period, roughly, is going to return a 9 to 10% return on your money. And that's since the very beginning of the exchange, going all the way back to the very beginning, James. So, but at any point in time, your portfolio could be up or down.
Yes.
But if you take it in any period of 9 to 10 years, go track it, it's going to average out 9 to 10. Now, by the way, it could be down 1% after 9 years. And in the 10th year, go up by 10. That you see my point. So
we track things over time. The bottom line is we track this stuff.
The bottom line is if you buy into the stock market, you need to understand that you need to be able to afford to leave your money in the market until the market ultimately delivers its average. By the way, a home is no different, because people, again, for decades asked me, man, is it a good time to buy? My answer is that depends on your holding horizon. Mm-hmm. It's not just this answer of, oh no, or oh yeah, right, prices are down, you should do it. I get
what's your
that.
motivation? Why are you thinking about it? What is it that has you considering buying? I mean, and that's
Here's
where I want.
Here's the point Here's the point that I always tell my own buyers and sellers. It's not the fault of the real estate, and it's not the cause of the real estate as to whether you made money or lost money. It's your ability to hang on to the real estate long enough to experience the ultimate appreciation driven up by the cost of all the commodities that go into the replacement of it.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
I want to do one more.
If you have a good time, if you have a good, so people say, should I buy today? It feels so high. What's our answer?
Well, it depends how long you live there.
Horizon. If you're willing to commit that you can afford to stay here if you had to for 10 years, or hold it, even if you bought something else, but hang on to this line. And I always tell the story. I wrote it in MREI that the first investment property I bought, I paid 65 grand. And it was a set of properties. They were attached townhomes right off of downtown. And the value dropped to 19.5. I know that because the one next to it sold for 19.5. It was identical to the one I owned. By the way, I always made cash flow. I ultimately sold that property for like 92, 93, something like that.
You held it long enough.
Yeah, I held it long enough. It always cash flowed. And I ultimately sold it and got all my money back and made some money. Yeah.
But if you had to sell it when that person sold theirs, it's not the real estate's fault, right? That it was worth $19,000. It was because you chose to sell it in that moment, and it is what it is. Okay.
Sure.
I want to do one more thing. And Gary, thank you for taking the time to be on.
Remember, population is going to go up, and the amount of real estate that's for sale when it is always going to be trying to chase that.
Yeah.
And whenever you have a long-term undersupply, prices are going to inflate.
I love it. I have one more question.
Yep.
There's a page 28 of Shift says this, and I want your opinion on it, because what we've talked about is These are all things agents don't have control over. The market does what the market does, and they can't control prices and they can't control that. But here's what they can control. Here's what you say on page 28. Business analysts had often pointed out that the seeds of failure are usually sown during times of success. The most humbling lesson of a shift is this: we succeed in good times, not only because of what we do right, but also in spite of what we do wrong. All right, you and Jay and Jason, everybody, and Ruben said at family reunion, we are in the market of instant sales. You put it on the market and it sells tomorrow. So we have a bunch of agents who are selling a ton of houses. Their volume is way up. They're making crazy money. And by the way, many of them are working hard. I'm not discounting anybody, Gary, but we have a lot of people who think they're really, really awesome. And whenever it flips, they're going to get coming. They're going to be exposed. Their lack of foundation or lead gen strategy or consistency is going to be exposed.
Right.
What do you want to say to them?
Well, what you said it all perfectly, that what happens in a boom market is you become lazy on your fundamentals. You get so busy, you stop doing the fundamental things because you're so busy. I mean, I was on the phone with an individual earlier today, and she's just worn out. She's a single agent, has one admin person, and did over $1 million in GCI by herself. Made a lot of money, but she has 2 young boys, and she's worn out. And what happens in that moment is you drop the fundamentals. So when the market shifts, all of a sudden you look up and you don't have a backlog of business. That's what happens. That's the danger of good times. That's all. So the way I think about it is, on one hand, you always want to live in the market of the moment. But the market of the moment is not about the fundamentals. It's about your messaging. The market of the moment is about the messaging around how to attract buyers and sellers. That's what the market of the moment is about. It doesn't change the fundamentals of lead gen, right? Mm-hmm. When you think of the real estate business, the business that we're in, first and foremost, we're expected to be real estate experts. And if you're not a real estate expert in your local market and you're not a transaction expert, I don't know what you're doing for a living. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do for a living. But
well, you said real quick, you said that our job as real estate agents is to provide perspective to potential buyers and sellers. In order to do that, you have to understand what's going on.
That's well said. That's exactly right. So, but if you got that, if you're an individual who is constantly paying attention, you're a transaction master, you got that, and you understand the market, you understand the market dynamics in which you serve, we're good to go. Now, there's just a handful of fundamentals. We lead gen, we convert to appointments, we convert appointments to listing and buyer agreements. We transact and we transaction manage, and if we get listings, we market listings. That's it. That's what we do. That's it. In terms of professional actions, those are the moments where we deliver our expertise and our perspective, right? What happens is, depending on the market, people let the market dictate their daily routine around how they do business. And the point that we're ever trying to make is stop that. Every day you wake up, you manage your time exactly the same way. And you have a decision. If you want to work extra time and you want to make more money, that's awesome. Or you can hire leverage, make a little less money or a lot less money in the short term, but have time back and lay the foundation to grow. You make all these decisions you want, right? Yeah. But the decision you should never make, and that is to drop the fundamentals. Don't ever do that. This is not a complicated business. When we wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, what we were really trying to point out in the end was your database is your business. Your network is your net worth, right? And so the one thing you can't drop is your 33 touch, your 45 touch, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Yeah. For me, every day, I'm trying to have a great career, not just a great year. So I understand this. And as an investor, I really understand this. And that is, I make investment decisions every day. My money doesn't necessarily make money every day.
That's good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes
Okay.
a ton of sense.
Okay. So it's the same in real estate sales, meaning that every day I'm going to do the things necessary to ultimately, when I tally up the score, I'm going to have had a great career. And I'm a little agnostic to the market because I'm always going to live beneath my means. So I'm not desperate for this to be the year that I crush it. What I'm very,
because you're looking long term. This is who you are. This is what you do.
Yeah, if I live long enough, I better plan for it. Yeah. So the way I think about it is, here's a good example. And that is, if I wake up in the morning, my job as a realtor, my job description is to get to a millionaire database. That's job number one of everyone listening. Now, whether it's the millionaire, whether it's the half millionaire, whether it's the quarter millionaire, I mean, whatever database you want to stop at, but your job, when I meet someone, and I started thinking about this way when I was 22 years old, my job was not to sell you or list you. My job was to connect with you, put you in my database, and be your realtor for life.
Yep.
And what I knew is the path is in the math, and the law of numbers would ultimately drive me to success, whether I wanted it or not. So what happens is most agents wake up every day and they go, I got to make a sale.
Yep.
I never said that. I woke up every day and said, I have to add to my database. I have to touch
such a different perspective, Gary. That is such a different perspective.
My job is to connect with people and be there for them. Mm-hmm. And then I have to let the law of big numbers drive my income. But it doesn't drive my actions. My actions are driven by a fundamental understanding that my job is to connect with people and then stay in touch with them until they're ready to buy or sell. And I can't determine that. So I have to play the law of big numbers, meaning that I have to have a large enough database that I touch, that I have a relationship with at various levels, depending upon who's in my database, such that there's a large number every year that raises their hand and says, this is my year.
I love it.
And that's it. That's the game. And what's beautiful about this industry is it's really hard in the early period. But later, if you do that, it becomes the greatest business ever. But that would be true. My brother-in-law was an oncologist for up until just a few years ago. And he was one of the best in the city. He made a change. He decided to be I'm not sure what you call this, a concierge doctor or I think of it as a limited service doctor, meaning that he only has 50 clients now. He only has 50 patients.
Okay.
But each patient has to pay him $20,000 a year in order for him to be their doctor. He's the millionaire doctor.
He is.
With 50 clients. Now, how do you get there? Well, because he became the best, and he had such a large database that when he finally switched over and said, I'm going to quit being, Dr. Death, if you will. I'm going to quit being the cancer doctor, and I'm going to go into general practice. How can I have my best life possible? How can I get my life back? How can I not be on call 24 hours a day, if you will, and people lined up the door out the street and around the corner for me to do business with? So with his database, and he told everybody, hey, I'm switching gears. So by the way, instead of paying me X, you're now going to pay me this, and it's not covered by your insurance.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're
going to come out of pocket, right? And it's $20,000 for you, and it's $10,000 more for your spouse and your family. So I'll cover all of you for 30 grand.
And he had 50 people say, sign me up.
90 days he filled up. He had so much, they brought another guy in, he filled up, and now they have a waiting list and they're thinking of adding a third. Okay. And all of that is because he was a master of what he was doing, and he maintained a relationship and a service relationship with the database.
It's a basic. I mean, you end the first chapter of Shift saying the basics are never outdated, and that's proof of it right there. So,
well, and it's interesting because most agents spend all day trying to avoid the basics.
Well, that's what knocks them out, right? So if we can, the challenge we have right now
That's right.
And Gary, I know we're up against the clock, but let's just get this part in. The challenge we have right now is you can not do the basics and sell houses and make money, and it's a pink fluffy unicorn. You can do that in 2022, but in 2037 or whenever it changes, you probably can't survive that way. Like it probably isn't going to work if you don't do the foundational things right now.
Well, if you're a professional, that's right. If you're a professional, the fundamental of any professional business is build a community and serve the community. That's it. That's all we do. And it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a realtor. It doesn't matter if you're an architect. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're a dog store. Pet store, I mean. It doesn't matter if you're a hairstylist. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You build a community and you serve the community. And the size of your community is determined by you. You'll decide how big that community is. What happens is a lot of real estate agents outside of their family and friends, they don't have a community at all. You say, show me your database, show me your community. If all you could do was serve your community and you could never again provide any value to anybody outside of your community, show me that community.
There isn't one.
Oh my God, 95% or higher of the real estate industry would be broke overnight because they'd look up and they'd say, well, past my friends and family, I don't have a community. I haven't curated a community. I don't serve that community. You look up and you go, every business has a community. Apple has a community and they've identified it and they now serve that community.
Well, the more value you add, the bigger the community gets. What's that?
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody has a cell phone. They're not selling net new to the community.
Right.
If they are, it's not a whole lot.
Well, and the more value you add, the bigger the community gets at the end of the day. So if you add a ton of value and you check in on your people, they're going to tell everybody else around you, hey, since you brought it up, Sajid is here, so we'll bring him in. And we'll do this piece of it. And Gary, you stick around as long as you want. I'm never kicking you off Connect. We're just going to keep rocking and rolling. But we'll invite Sajid Patel into the conversation because Sajid, what I wanted you to do was kind of give us the actionable coaching perspective of what Gary shared with us. And so as you've been on this whole time listening to this conversation, what are the takeaways and ahas from you from what Gary shared so far?
Well, hang on. I'm gonna turn the floor over to my phenomenal colleague Sajid, and I'm not going to interrupt him. So I'm going to go mute and silent. So
all right, Gary, sounds good. Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you very, very much. Sajid, so break it down. I mean, what are the takeaways from what Gary just shared with us?
I mean, it's simple, right? When the market gets really busy, we get away from the fundamentals. And when we look at the fundamentals of how do we make money, and Gary talks about your network is your net worth, means are we doing the fundamentals of lead gen and lead follow-up every single day? And from a coaching perspective, I could tell you that's the very first thing that everyone negotiates. That's the very first thing that comes off of everyone's calendar because a buyer calls and they want to go look at a home. Seller calls and says, I want you to come list my home. And so they'll erase it off their calendar. They don't replace it. So it's real simple, James. We need to make sure that we stick to the fundamentals and making sure that we're role playing every day. Professional football players don't stop practice. Why do we?
Right.
We need to make sure we lead gen every single day, lead follow up every day, and then keep the afternoons for going on appointments and writing contracts. If you just protect that, you're playing the long-term game, like Gary mentioned, instead of the short-term game where you ride the roller coaster that every real estate agent rides.
Well, and you're playing to win. I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing to win. You bring up, a football player is always practicing. I'm here in Florida. It's supposed to be spring training right now. There is no spring training, but you know who's here? Players. Players are here. They're at USF's campus. They're at other campuses, and they're practicing and they're preparing so that when the lockout's over, they can get back after it. I love that. All right. So with the couple of minutes we've got left, then what are the key mistakes then, or the key ways to make sure you don't make those classic mistakes? How do you make sure you don't make the classic mistakes that agents are making right now, which is responding to the urgent and not staying in the fundamentals?
Simple. keep your time blocks for your lead gen and lead follow-up as if you're going on a $10 million listing appointment. You wouldn't negotiate those. So why are you negotiating the key activities that generate money for you?
It's smart. All right, that's it, Sajid. I know you were on for a while, but we've got a hard stop for you, and I want to honor that. So I appreciate you being on. Any final thoughts or before we kick it?
No, the only thing I would say is, it doesn't matter what level of production you're in. It doesn't matter if you're an individual agent or if you're a leader on a big team. It's getting back to, the fundamentals. MREA is still relevant. Shift is still relevant. And as leaders, what we see is people are getting away from the fundamentals of leadership. As agents, they're getting away from the fundamentals of being a great agent, which is making sure that you're lead genning and lead follow-up. As leaders, it's the same thing, except you're lead genning for talent. You're developing the relationships with talent. So how big is your talent database as a leader? And if you just think about it that way, you're going to grow a massive business.
And that's what it's about. Sajid, thank you. Thanks for being on. I appreciate you very much. And all the best to you. And Gary, thank you so much for being on as well. Folks, we had a great 2-day shift workshop, so many strategies, so many ideas, and so many wonderful guests. Do me a favor and start blowing up that chat with gratitude and ahas, because the things that we learned today and I feel like it feels like we've been on here for hours, and we have, but I mean, if you go back, the stuff Denny Grimes gave us about how to be able to have a conversation with a seller right now and be able to move them forward in today's market about their concerns. Jenny gave us how we walk through the right strategy to market the property and communicate with our seller. Marcy gave you how to handle the offers. And Charles came in and walked through his whole buyer process. Then we went through bulletproofing. And then, of course, Gary and Sajid. What a day. What a day. I'm honored that you would have spent your day with us today and yesterday to go through these strategies to help you win in any market. Let's take to heart what Gary said. Wake up every day and do the fundamentals. And it is, who can I add to my database today and how can I add value to them before how do I keep this deal together or go show this person a house? It's about doing the right things day in and day out. And when you do those right things day in and day out, you'll win more often than not. That's it. We're done. Thanks for being here. You got your inspiration. Now go put in the perspiration, okay? And we'll do a recap of this tomorrow morning on our 8 a.m. Eastern mastermind call over on Pivot Shift Ahead. You can watch it in Facebook or join us on Zoom, pivotshiftcall.com. We'll do our ahas then. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you around. Have a good one. Bye-bye.